Good evening, council. We'll call our special council meeting to order for Wednesday, July the 12th, 2023 at 6:30 PM. Number two, the declaration of pecuniary interest. Any members of council have any declaration of pecuniary interest? See none. Three is our approval of the agenda. We have a motion that the agenda of the special council meeting of July the 12th, 2023 be approved as presented. Mover, Councillor Leroux and Councillor Marchand. Comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Number four is our in-camera items. We have a motion that in accordance with the Town of Penetanguishene Procedural Bylaw 2019-25, the Council of the Town of Penetanguishene move into an in-camera session to discuss litigation or potential litigation affecting the municipality or local board, including matters before administrative tribunals or advice as subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. We have one item this evening regarding the Ledyard Award Drain Cleanout, ENG 2023-06. We'll look for a mover. Councillor Vadabunker, seconder, Councillor DeRush. Comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor and opposed? And that is carried. We'll go into the committee room to debate this item.
Test.
All right, council will continue our closed session. We're back in open. Item 4.3 is a rise from closed session. The council of town of Pensanguishene rise from an in-camera session with a report. I'll look for a mover. Councilor Marshall, second, Councilor Vedabon-Kerr. Further comments? Call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Advisory report from in-camera. Madam Clerk, can you just confirm the motion for this for us?
Certainly, Your Worship. The motion would be that staff be approved to proceed as directed within the in-camera portion of the meeting.
Thank you. Mover, Councilor LaRue, seconder, Councilor Marshall. Further comments or questions on this item? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? That is carried. Number 6, our question period from the media and public regarding this closed meeting at 6:30. Seeing none, 7 will look to adjourn at 6:49. And we'll call for the vote. That's carried. Thank you. Good evening, council and members of the public. Thank you for joining us tonight for a regular council meeting for Wednesday, July the 12th, 2023. I'm going to call the meeting to order at 7 p.m. We're going to start with inviting Chief Renault to do a public safety announcement before we get started with our agenda. Thanks, Chief Renault.
Thank you, Your Worship. Worship, members of council, directors, and Bill in attendance. Good evening. Just a quick note before we start our council meeting. In the event that you need washrooms, the washrooms are located just at the outside of council chambers on the right side through the hallway. The fire hall is protected with a single stage fire alarm system. Should the alarms ring, please vacate the building through the exits at the rear or on the side. We will gather in the parking lot closest to the church. In the event of a medical emergency, please dial 911. The address here is number 10 Robert Street West. I also want to remind you that there is a public access defibrillator just outside council chambers. I'm wishing you a safe evening. Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs. Bienvenue à la ville de Penetanguishene pour le conseil, la réunion du conseil. Si vous avez besoin les chambres de bain sont à la sortie juste arrière de vous, à la droite dans le corridor. L'hôtel de ville est protégé d'un service d'incendie ou d'alarme d'incendie d'un stage. Si l'alarme sonne, veuillez quitter par la porte arrière ou sur le côté et on va se rencontrer dans le stationnement près de l'église. Dans le cas d'urgence, veuillez signaler le 911. L'adresse ici, c'est le 10 rue Robert à Penetanguishene. Je veux vous dire aussi ou vous annoncer aussi qu'on a un défibrillateur à la sortie ou à l'entrée de la salle de conseil. Je vous souhaite une bonne soirée. Merci. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Chief Renault, and thank you for the making it in bilingual for us this evening. I appreciate your work on that. Number 2 on our agenda is our land acknowledgement. Penetanguishene respectfully acknowledges that we are on the traditional and treaty territory of the Anishinaabe people and their ancestors, now known as the Williams Treaties First Nations territory. This includes Chippewa Tri-Council comprised of Bosley First Nation, Rama First Nation, and the Georgina Island First Nation, Alderville, Curve Lake, Hiawatha, and Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nations. Also once home of the Huron-Wendat and more recently the historic settlement of the Métis. Penetanguishene is now home to many Indigenous peoples. Penetanguishene is proud of its Indigenous name and more importantly, that for thousands of years it has been and will continue to be an important homeland and gathering place for Indigenous people. We recognize that we are the stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters and responsible to ensure that our mother, the earth, is here for future generations. Moving on to number 3 is our welcome and council commitment. So again, welcome everybody for being here tonight. We appreciate your participation. We're going to start with our council commitment. And I'll ask Councillor Vadabonker, if we can rise, if you can lead us through the English version of our council commitment. I appreciate that.
We're grateful for the many gifts which have been bestowed on Penetanguishene and its citizens, including the gifts of freedom, opportunity, and peace that we enjoy. May we be worthy custodians of all that has been entrusted to us. We ask that all in attendance and those that could not be here assist us in promoting good government. May our decisions as members of council be enlightened, and may we all be strengthened in our awareness of our duties and responsibilities. May we be granted the wisdom, knowledge, will, and understanding to preserve the good fortune of the town for the benefit of all and to make good laws and wise decisions. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you, Councillor Vadabonker. And Councillor Drush, if you can lead us through the French version, I appreciate that.
Thank you. Nous sommes reconnaissants des nombreuses grâces accordées à Penetanguishene et à ses citoyens dont la liberté, les possibilités et la paix dont nous jouissons. Que nous soyons des intendants dignes de tout ce qui nous a été confié. Nous demandons que toutes les personnes présentes et celles qui n'ont pas pu se présenter nous aident à promouvoir une bonne gouvernance. Que nos décisions à titre de membres du Conseil soient éclairées et que nous soyons tous renforcés à prendre conscience de nos devoirs et responsabilités. Que l'on nous accorde la sagesse, les connaissances, la volonté et la compréhension qui nous permettront de préserver la bonne fortune de la Ville au bénéfice de tous, ainsi que de faire de bonnes lois et prendre de sages décisions. Merci de votre présence.
Thank you, Council. Moving on, number 4 is our approval of the agenda. We have a motion that the agenda for the regular council meeting for July the 12th, 2023 be approved as presented. We'll look for a mover. Deputy Mayor LaRose, seconder. Councilor Vanabonker, further comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? And that is carried. 5 is a declaration of pecuniary interest. Any members have a declaration of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. 6 is statement from members. There's an opportunity for members of council to share with members of the public what council's been up to since our last regular council meeting. I'll just start off that, since our last time we've been together, which I'm sure the deputy mayor will update in a little while, we've updated our strategic plan at the county of Simcoe, where myself and the deputy mayor sit every Simcoe County Day. So we've worked through that process and we're looking forward to the final one coming back to county in the short future. And just after our last council meeting, Chief Renault and your team led an emergency planning exercise, which I got to participate in, along with multiple members of our staff and members of our staff, along with the town of Midland. I think it was well done, and hats off to you, Chief Renault, and everybody that came. Just know the members of our community know that from emergency preparedness perspective, we're in great shape. So thanks for the work that's been done on that. There's been lots of great work that's been done over the last little while. I know the CEO and I met with Community Reach in the last little while about transportation, how we can help with that within our community. So I think there's a report with the CEO. We may hear more about that in the near future. I did get to participate at the Georgian Bay Native Friendship Center's powwow and represent us there after emergency planning with the chief that day. So that was another great event. The deputy and I were at Taney Township's Canada event. I think we had the best float, Deputy Mayor. We had the best float in the parade, but it was good to be at their event for that. I also want to emphasize, we've been doing a lot of work with the Police Services Board. We had a special Police Services Board since the last meeting, and it was a presentation by a community volunteer, Phil DeBrun, who did a presentation from the Ontario Association of Police Services Board to update us on the detachments, the new detachment board, what's coming. A lot of really good work's being done on this. But there'll be more information to come in the near future. I participated in Simcoe County Housing Initiative. The deputy mayor and I, again, we represented the town with the best float as well at the town of Midlands Canada Day Parade. I think we had the best float there as well. What's the laughing chuckling? Were you there? We think it was the best float. I also want to emphasize on June 30th, the CEO, Jeff Lees, and I started doing some outreach, going door to door, meeting our business community, seeing how we can help and what the opportunities and challenges are. So we've done basically the business from Robert Street up to the Angels. We have more to do, but we've started that process. So thank you to you, CEO Lees, to coming out for that. And around out, we spent the day at Canada Day at the museum, and Sherry, to you and your team, I can't say enough. It was tremendous. I think there was a lot of great time, and friends got to reconnect, and it was just a great event. And I can't say enough to the team and the volunteers that make that happen. It's just unbelievable, something we shall be proud of. And then we topped up the night with music at the amphitheater and fireworks. And I've heard from so many people saying it's the best fireworks they've seen. So hats off to that. It was another tremendous event, one that we should be proud of. And I'll just end by saying we've had a meeting as well with Bosley First Nation. Bosley First Nation recently had their election, and they re-elected Chief Sandy for another term. So just welcoming how we can work closely together. So that's a little bit about what I have done. Most recently, last evening, myself and multiple members of council were at Penetangwisheen Fire Hall with Chief Renault to recognize Captain Ron Marchand. To you, Chief, hats off to everyone for that event. It was I think it was a tremendous celebration and recognition honor for Captain Marchand. So thank you for that recognition. I think it was tremendous. And today, CEO Jeff Lees and I were up at Magna, and I think we learned a lot. You know, Magna's in our backyard. I've lived here my whole life and I had no idea the scope and scale and the tremendous work they do there. I think we're going to look at seeing if they can come here to do a presentation because I think all members of council would appreciate seeing the tremendous things that's been done at Magna. So that's a little bit from my lens. We'll look to you, Councillor, if you want to share from your end.
Well, Your Worship, I must say that you actually probably stole all my thunder. I was planning on touching on the Canada Day event at our museum, and I congratulate the board and in particular the Friends of the Penetanguishene Centennial Museum again on a job well done. I believe it was probably the 27th year that the Canada Day event has been held at the museum, and they do an excellent job every year. Music is fantastic, food and everything, and we had an unbelievable turnout. And as you touched on the evening, thanks to Marla in particular for organizing the two concerts that took place prior to the fireworks. And then again, as you mentioned, I had countless number of people congratulating the municipality on the fireworks that were just magnificent. And ending with that, and then I guess I will be looking forward to All Things Canadian on July the 29th to be held here at the Cenotaph Park.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Mershaw.
Thank you. Didn't mean to laugh, but I'm really anxious to see pictures of this float. Oh, I have lots of faith. Did you have it on display at the museum? Oh, we'll have to make sure to, okay. Again, I won't repeat things that have already been shared, but I would just echo comments on last night's ceremony at the fire hall. The dedication to Captain Marchand was very touching and moving, and the family was very grateful, and just the added touches, and sadly that we have to add a memorial in front of the fire hall, but you did a wonderful job of honoring him and really honoring the family in just a really meaningful way. And the plaque inside with the pressure washer and how that was his last and Captain Marchand's last wish that he didn't get to see fulfilled, and the fire hall completed that work and dedicated, and I think that's wonderful. The only other thing I would just would like to add is that last council meeting, I was in a bit of a rush to get out of here. Our Penetang Midland Ball Hockey Association, I think, so it was a U18 game. So before I brag about my son beating the mayor's son's team, but that's just beside the point. Our teams had amazing representation just this weekend at provincials. Our senior boys coming in second, but our intermediate boys, the U18, did bring home the gold. The female team as well brought a silver. So Penetanguishene was very well represented on those ball hockey teams provincially this weekend, and just wanted to shout out to that. But yeah, last weekend we did get to catch the game, last month, and the Crusaders did defeat the Destroyers 3-2. It was a nail biter, but I'm happy to say the trophy's at my house. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marchand. Councillor Vadaboncourt.
Thank you, Worship. I want to start off by apologizing to my fellow colleagues for my inability to attend the June 14th council meeting. I did try. I was on Zoom sporadically during that period, but due to my flight being delayed and whatnot, I wasn't able to join council that evening. I did watch the meetings on YouTube, so I appreciate the discussion and debate that took place. I want to thank Councillor Roux for chairing the Planning and Community Development Services section that night. Thank you, Councillor. On June 25th, I attended the Georgian Bay Métis Council Rendezvous at Discovery Harbor. It was my first time attending the event, and I was impressed on how well organized it was. Staff from our fire department were there with a pumper truck and a display. On June 26th, I joined the mayor in the morning and attended a special police services board meeting that he mentioned. And it was a very interesting presentation. And as the mayor said, there's more to come on the future of police services boards in our area. Later in the evening, I chaired a committee of adjustment meeting where we considered an application. On July 1st, I participated in the Town of Midland Canada Day Parade and walked with the Midland Sports Hall of Fame in front of the float from the town of Penetanguishene. And and it was a great day. And then right after that, we went down to the museum and enjoyed the activities at the museum. And Councilor Roux was supervising the bar there, and it was well attended. It was a great afternoon, so it was really quite nice. And finally on July 4th, I attended the information session on the Georgian Bay UNESCO Geopark at the Midland Cultural Center, hosted by the Midland Penetanguishene Field Naturals Club. It was a morning of presentations from the University of Toronto professors. It was attended by representatives from the different municipalities, Severn Sound Environmental Association, and members of the public. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Vadvunker. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think most of it's been covered. We did the Tay Parade, in which we rode on a 1927 LaFrance fire truck with a number of members of different council members from different municipalities. The Midland one, you'll have to go online to see. It is above and beyond. It's words wouldn't do it justice. The Canada Day festivities, when we returned back at the museum, were awesome. It was busy, seeing lots of you fellow folks down there. The fireworks was great. I couldn't believe the amount of people in town for it. It was absolutely awesome. And I guess the most important one was last night. That was very nice dedication, well done by the whole troops. It was a little iffy at first when it started to spit rain, but cleared off at the right time, and it was absolutely wonderful.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Drush.
Thank you very much. I would like to mention that on June 26th, we did do a flag raising here at the town to underline National Indigenous History Month and People's Day. So always very proud to participate to those events. I also attended on Thursday, June 29th, I attended the BizLink luncheon that was held here in town at the Quality Inn in Midland. And it was hosted by the North Simcoe Community Futures Development Corporation. And many local entrepreneurs were there in attendance to celebrate the North Simcoe community's recent provincial award for BizLink, which is a program that connects buyers and sellers of businesses. So throughout that event, we learned about the program itself and the impacts and what BizLink can offer business owners and entrepreneurs. It was actually a very impressive showcase of collaborative relationships between the businesses and the Community Futures Development Corp. It also, on another note, it was also a pleasure. I did attend the Canada Day activities here in Penetanguishene, and I of course ditto everything that was said. It's just great to be in a town where you kind of know everybody and you can enjoy seeing people you haven't seen for a long time. It's really a great time, a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Drush. Councillor Waters not here this evening. There's a family emergency, and on behalf of council, I think we can express our thoughts with him this evening. CEO Lees, I'll look to you for some comments on behalf of yourself and the administration.
Thank you, Your Worship. A couple quick things to share with council and members of the community. On June 12th, shortly after or shortly before, I guess, the last council meeting, staff did push out communication with respect to the free transit for seniors, the decision that council made in May. So that was ratified by council in May. We pushed out some communication on June 12th. The short of it is, for those seniors that have already paid for transit, they will be eligible for a refund up to October 27th. In the coming days, there will be an additional communication that gets pushed out with the details and specifics around how seniors can get their cards, get their free transit cards. That's expected to go out in the next couple of days. And the program itself is expected to launch or start on August 17th. There will be the communication that we're pushing out. We will endeavor to get it out as widespread as possible at as many facilities and public portals as we possibly can, including facilities that seniors would frequent. So that's the update I wanted to share with respect to seniors transit. The other update, I think briefly mention it a month ago, but We had an all-staff appreciation event on the 15th of June, I'm going to say, and my date might be slightly off. All staff participated in a barbecue with a little appreciation takeaway, as well as a social baseball game. That was an idea that was raised from one of our departments and went over very well. There was a little bit of friendly rivalry, and it went over extremely well, and staff seemed to enjoy themselves. So I won't announce which team won, but it was a fun game nonetheless. Thank you, Worship. Those are the two updates I wanted to share.
Thank you, Elise. And for members of the public, there's lots going on between meeting to meeting. This is just an opportunity for us to share a little glimmer of what that looks like from your perspective. Moving on, the next item is our public meeting on number 7. This is a public meeting under the Planning Act to consider an application for a zoning amendment for the property located at 280 Watson. The purpose of the application is to lift the holding H symbol. To council, the purpose of this public meeting is to provide an opportunity for the public to make comments. The intention of this public meeting is not to engage in a debate regarding the merits of the application, nor is it projected to be a question and answer session. There is an opportunity later in the meeting for council to ask questions on the applications after the public meeting has concluded. Andrew, I'd ask if you could introduce this application for us, please, and if you can confirm about the public notification, if you can note any correspondence received, and if you could outline the proposal, please.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, members of council and the public. This is a public meeting under the Planning Act. It is to remove the holding H symbol associated with the property at 280 Watson Road. This type of application is a technical exercise during which the applicant has demonstrated that they have completed a requirement of the town for removal of the holding symbol. In this case, the holding symbol was applied to ensure that the septic system on the property were in working order, and this was completed in 2021. So notice of tonight's public meeting was given on June 22nd. The correspondence received has been from the chief building official indicating the same requirement, that the permit for the septic system was approved and inspections completed, as well as a correspondence from Enbridge Gas noting no concerns. Other than that, there have been no public comments on the application.
Thank you, Andrew. Andrew, is the agent or applicant here that wants to provide any comments on the application?
No, I do not see them in attendance.
Thank you. Is there any members of the audience who wish to make any comments on the application based on the land use planning issues relevant to this application? If there are, I'd ask you to go to the podium, and I'd ask that you state your name and your address for the record, please. I don't see any. And Sarah, do we have anybody online that wants to comment? Thank you. And just for the record, there's no agent here, so there's no concluding comments. So we're going to thank everyone for your attendance and your participation in this public meeting. We're going to close the public portion meeting of this session. And Andrew or Stacy, just to confirm, the motion's later in the agenda, right? Okay. Thank you. Moving on to number 8, our proclamations. We have a couple this evening. Our first one is a proclamation for July the 24th to August the 6th as Fiat Simcoe Pride Season. Whereas this marks the 12th annual Fiat Simcoe Pride, and its purpose is to create a safe and inclusive Simcoe County that supports gender and sexual diversity through services, activities, and events. And whereas the Intersex Progress Pride flag is raised to honor gender and sexual diversity in Simcoe County, the Intersex Progress Pride flag was designed by Valentino Vichetti in the UK in 2021. The flag is a combination of Gilbert Baker's 1978 Pride flag, Daniel Quayler's 2018 Progress Pride flag, and Morgan Carpenter's 2013 Intersex flag. The flag is a symbol of the Pride movement and the advancement of human rights for sexual orientation, gender identity, and expressions, sex characteristics, and whereas Fiat Simcoe Pride was formed on May 13, 2012, and its mission is to create and offer inclusive events, services, and educational opportunities that rise above heterosexism, heteronormativity, and homo bi transphobia, promoting safe communities within Simcoe County. And whereas Fiat Simcoe Pride is filled with numerous events and activities that focus on education, awareness, community development, creative expression, and fun for the whole family. Now therefore, I, Mayor Doug Ross, and on behalf of the Council of the Town of Penetanguishene, do hereby proclaim July 24th, 2023 to August the 6th, 2023 as Fiat Simcoe Pride Season in the Town of Penetanguishene. I'll look for a mover, please. Councillor Marchand, seconder. Councillor Duresh, any further comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? And that is carried. Our second proclamation, 9B, is the Arthritis Society of Canada, a proclamation for September as Arthritis Awareness Month. Whereas community support has been critical throughout the Arthritis Society Canada's 75-year history, enabling the organization to fulfill its mission to fight the fire of arthritis with cutting-edge research, bold innovation, fiery advocacy, and evidence-based information and patient-centered support. And whereas arthritis is not just arthritis. Arthritis is serious. It causes debilitating pain, restricts mobility, and diminishes quality of life. 6 million Canadians, 1 in 5, live every day with the fire of arthritis, and there is no cure. Without a greater spotlight on this growing issue, the number of Canadians with arthritis will rise to 9 million by 2040. And whereas during Arthritis Awareness Month, this September, we seek to raise voices and awareness, and we are encouraging everyone who lives with arthritis and all those who know and love them to fight the fire of arthritis. And whereas the Arthritis Society of Canada is Canada's national charity dedicated to extinguishing arthritis for good. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Doug Ross, and on behalf of the Council of the Town of Penetanguishene, do hereby declare September as Arthritis Awareness Month here in the Town of Penetanguishene. I'll look for a mover. Councillor Marchand, seconder, Councillor Vedabunker. Comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? And that is carried. Now is our deputations and presentations. We have 2 tonight. A is a presentation from Nancy Baker Tilly regarding our audited financial. And Carrie, are you going to start this off or Jeff? Carrie? Is our presenters here? Okay.
Your Worship, Jay Anstey, a partner in Baker Tilly, is online to do the presentation.
Thanks, Carrie. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Your Worship. Can everybody hear me?
We can.
Great, thank you. Nice to be here and see some new and familiar faces. I'm Jay Anstey. I'm a partner with Baker Tilly, the external auditors for the Town of Penetanguishene. Thank you for hosting me online tonight. It would be nice to be there to meet some of the new council members and yourself, Your Worship. But I am always happy to be on site if council so wishes it. I'm just over calling in from my office in Collingwood. But we are often up in the area auditing the neighboring municipalities as well as on site when we're performing our audit with the Treasury staff. We have been the auditors of the Town of Penetanguishene for the past 6 years and had actually been the auditors for another 5 years previous to that. I myself have been the partner on the audit, and tonight is the final step in the audit actually in having council approve the financial statements. And while I understand that this is the audit of the 2022 financial year where this council just came into its term at the end of the year, it is an important step, and I'll go over a couple of the key items that I think are important for you to understand as part of this process and as part of the past financial year. I will share my screen for the presentation. And can you confirm if my presentation is on screen?
We can.
Great, thank you. So as I was mentioning, these are the audit results for the 2022 financial year and fiscal year. The audit process is an ongoing process starting often in the fall and goes on through until this point. The audit, I have to say, was an exceptionally smooth process this year in 2022. 20 and 21 were obviously difficult years for many reasons, and audits weren't an exception throughout COVID, but I have to say that Penetanguishene was one of the best audit processes that I had gone through for a municipality this year. And I think the audit results speak to that with our management letter and our audit reporting letter that really report that there were no issues to report to council that we came across. And that includes actually not finding any adjustments to the financial statements. Besides, obviously, we're involved in the consolidation of the statements to help get them into the format they are today. But just an excellent job by Treasurer Billiard and her Treasury team to make it a great audit process. So happy to report that to council. And of course, as I've mentioned, the final step of the audit is council understanding the audit report or the audited statements, and the audit report is dated today, July 12th, in anticipation of council approving the statements after this presentation. I'll go through some highlights at a fairly high level and in hopes that I can help provide some understanding of the financial statements. And starting with the consolidated statement of operations. So these 6 lines presented in front of us are a snapshot of the entire financial year of operations of the town for the 2022 year. One thing to note with these financial statements, they are prepared under PSAB, Public Sector Accounting Board standards. What that means is they might be different than some of the figures that you see from internal presentations and internal budgets because they are just presented in a different format to be comparable to other financial statements. So this is common across all municipalities that there are differences. One of those, and a great example of this, I think, is transfers to and from reserves, where council may consider a transfer from reserves and operate a revenue source, or a transfer to reserves an expense. We don't consider that a revenue or an expense in PSAB financial statements. So among other differences such as amortization expense that I will get into. When we're looking at the operating revenues for the 2022 fiscal year of approximately 20 million, we see this is $1.3 million higher than budget. Most revenue sources are in line with the budget for the year, but there are 2 particular sources that were higher, and government grants of $960,000 were $420,000 over budget. And these included some additional grants from Safe Restart, RTO 7 funding, and then the increase in OMPF funding that was received for the year. As well as investment income was actually higher than budget for the year, and a significant increase over prior years. And that's just inherent with the increase in interest rates that bank account interest has been increasing, and it was actually $300,000 higher year over year. In terms of operating expenses, we see operating expenses of $20.5 million, and this is compared to a budget of $17 million. And while this is another important item to understand, that in the actual figures include amortization expense, and that's the accounting entry for the depreciation of the capital assets that the municipality owns over time. So if you don't include that $3 million of amortization expense, operating expenses are actually $3 million over budget, or sorry, under budget, they're actually in line with budget when we factor that in. And of course, this rolls down to the net revenue and net expenses, that where we see a net expenses, when we discount the amortization entry, we actually are in a net revenue position. Capital and other revenues. These are revenues that are received and have been used specifically for tangible capital asset purchases. They include sources such as government grants and the obligatory reserve funds, that was being mainly the development charges that are levied, and the usage of those. We see this revenue source is $2.6 million below the $5.1 million budget figure. And this is a result of when projects take longer to carry out, or they can vary from year to year based on timing and actual amount of expenditure on the purchase side, then the revenue does not get recognized, and it remains on the statement of financial position as a liability until it does. And finally, the annual surplus of $2 million. And again, this is including the amortization expense, but it is generally allocated, the annual surplus, to either the purchase of tangible capital assets or the transfers to reserves, which I will discuss later. Turning to the statement of financial position, so the as of 2022 year end, the actual financial snapshot of where the municipality sits. Starting with financial assets, and those are either cash or items that we expect to be turned into cash of $19 million, about $1 million decrease year over year. And that does, well, there are many factors in where cash goes, and whether that's the payment of a current liability, a payment of long-term debt, or the use of intangible capital assets. It does generally tie into the decrease in the reserves, where some reserves were used in the 2022 fiscal year. When we look at the financial position in terms of financial assets, one thing we often look at as an indicator is how much cash is available compared to current liabilities. And to be considered low risk, you would want to have at least enough cash to cover 50% of your current liabilities, where the town of Penetanguishene does have 5 times the cash to cover its current liabilities. So no liquidity risk within the municipality. But it is important to note that of the cash balance of $15.2 million, $6 million has been restricted in use. And we'll see that on the liability side of the statement of financial position, where these have been specifically set aside for things such as development charges or other sources such as government grants or development or developer deposits that may have to be refunded in the future. In terms of liabilities, as of the end of 2022, of $22.6 million, decreased from $23.2 million year over year. Really a fairly comparable balance of liabilities, with decreases from regular repayments through operations, the use of some obligatory reserve funds through the year, as well as debt repayments. The largest increase we did see was some increases from developer deposits, with a big development coming in on the Champlain shores, so some developer funds held there. There are 2 more complex accounting line items on here: employee future benefits and the solid waste landfill post-closure liability. These are both estimates of future liabilities, but are recorded and required under public sector accounting standards. And they will tie into a line I will refer to later of $1.5 million of unfunded liabilities. And this just means that funds haven't been assigned to account for these potential future liabilities. Looking at long-term debt specifically, Note 16 describes the terms and repayment of expected repayments of the long-term liabilities. There are currently 2 long-term loans, and those are for the sewer treatment plant and Main Street construction that occurred in the prior year and debt was drawn on in the prior year, as well as the town's share of the Huronia Airport Commission's long-term debt. There were no new loans drawn in the 2022 fiscal year, with regular repayments of $285,000. Between the principal repayments and interest payments of $435,000, there was $720,000 of debt servicing. And when we compare that to the municipality's own source of revenue, debt is taking up 4.1% of the municipality's own source of revenue, that being taxation and user charges. This is considered to be in the low risk range. We want that to be below 5%. So the town is still in that low risk rating overall in terms of debt repayment. And then finally, on the consolidated statement of financial position, we look at the net debt, comparing those 2 concepts, the financial assets and the total liabilities. And overall, the town does have a net debt position where if we used all of the cash and collected everything that is owed to the town and paid off all the liabilities, there wouldn't be enough cash available to cover that net debt. That is not considered a high risk area. Again, considering that $12.2 million is in a long-term debt, and that's not expected to be repaid anytime soon. It's actually being repaid until 2048. So as you see here from the risk ranges, you can still be low risk even if you had a negative or a net debt position, and the township is still considered in the low risk range in this indicator. Other than financial assets, there are non-financial assets, and the main source of this are your tangible capital assets. And these are the physical assets that the town does own, and that's from the buildings, the land, roads, water and sewer infrastructure, machinery and equipment, anything the town physically owns to use to provide the services that it does provide. Overall, there was a net $2.5 million increase in tangible capital assets this year, with $5.5 million of additions being offset by $3 million of amortization, that systematic depreciation of assets over their useful life. The financial indicator that we look at when looking at tangible capital assets is how much of the useful life is remaining on average, or in specific on a tangible capital asset. And Penetanguishene has only used up 31% of the life of its assets on average. So a very low here, and so which is great in the risk range. Some recent reconstruction, including the sewer treatment plant and Main Street reconstruction, along with other road redevelopments that are going on, are really bringing this average down, just indicating that the town is reinvesting in its own assets. And here's another look at it, but you see that buildings and linear assets include your roads and water infrastructure, are in the very low and safe risk range here. And then the last thing I wanted to touch on is accumulated surplus. And that is exactly what it says, is the surpluses of prior years that have accumulated and are the ending balance that the town has. It is important to understand that the accumulated surplus of $96 million is not cash, as I have gone over tonight. The main area of accumulated surplus is prior surpluses have been invested in the town's assets and infrastructure, and that's $87 million. It's not the $99 million I just referred to, because $12 million of the assets owned are financed by long-term debt, which will be recovered through future taxation sources. There's also the surplus and reserve funds, which can be used for future purchases, and whether that's operations or capital assets, and then that unfunded liabilities that I referred to back on the statement of financial position. And just a little bit deeper look at the reserves. So these are prior surpluses that have been set aside by council for current or future purposes. We see there's $10.2 million, a $740,000 net decrease. While there's budgeted and unbudgeted ins and outs, obviously throughout the year, but the largest utilization throughout the year was $700,000 for the Chatham Street reconstruction costs. The other area to note on here are the funds to be replenished, where $513,000 was borrowed from an internal reserve from the sale of the Hydroelectric Commission a number of years ago, where that reserve is obviously used to borrow from and then is replenished over time. So some additional funds borrowed from that through the year. So those are the financial highlights that I wanted to go over tonight, and I'm happy to field any questions or comments from council.
Thank you, Mr. Yancey. I appreciate that. Members of council, any comments or questions for our presenter on the audited financials? Seeing none. Do we have any questions from members of the public on our financials this night? Very good. We have a motion that council approve the 2022 audited financial statements, audit and management letters, and year-end report as presented. I'll look for mover. Councilor Marshall, second, Councilor Leroux. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much for your presentation tonight. Have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Moving on to 9B is a presentation from Stu Spires, the president of the Penetanguishene Curling Club. Mr. Spires, I'll invite you to the podium, and thank you for being here tonight. I'll just get you to turn the microphone on. There's a switch on the bottom of the.
See the light on now. So I'm Stu Spires, president of the Penetang Curling Club. By way of background, I'm a retired General Motors executive, spent most of my career in manufacturing and engineering. I've been a full-time resident of Penetanguishene for now 7.5 years. In 6 of those years, I've been involved with the board at the Curling Club. And to be clear, we are very interested in the Penetang Curling Club being an integral part of recreation and social life in Penetanguishene and the surrounding area. So my update today would be very quick to talk. I'll talk about membership, financial position, and our opportunities. Turning now to the membership slide, if I could. Thank you. So back in 2019 and 20 season, we had 160 adult members. I did a quick look at the addresses of those people, and my assessment is about 65% of those members were from Penetanguishene, 20% from Midland, and 15% other codes. For 2020 and 21 and 22 were both very much impacted by COVID. We returned last season, 22-23, with about 130 adult members. Quick look would say we had 30 less. The rest of the story is we had 30 new people. So from the 3 years previous, we actually lost 60 people. This year, we're hosting what we call an early bird registration during this month. In fact, this evening, there's an in-person ability to register to curl next year. We are very hopeful in a post-COVID uptick. Lots of the talk on the street is that that's a reasonable expectation. We're hoping that's going to happen. And we're very excited and expecting growth in our Little Rocks program. Lots of people asking about that and anticipating joining. So that's really good news for the future. The Little Rocks don't bring a lot of curling in the main leagues that we host. So our membership is a major focus right now for the Penetang Curling Club. Shifting to our financials, important to note that this club is run 100% with volunteers. Our operating costs for the fiscal year that's just ending are about $120,000, down $10,000 from what we would normally project. We had lower than projected maintenance cost and utilities, so that's all good news. Our income was $136,000, down now $9,000 from where we would normally be. And due to the 2 COVID years, we had some, I'll call them rebates to members that impacted membership. And obviously with fewer members, the income from the bar and other activities wasn't what you'd expect. So it was down about $9,000. Important to note that between calendar year 2020 and 2023, we've had just about $370,000 invested in the building. We had Ontario Trillium Fund for $214,600. The club invested $98,000, and the town helped us out with $57,000. So there's been good money put into the club in the last 4 years there. Importantly, this year, our CEBA loan needs to be repaid. So before the end of the year, we will repay $40,000. So financially, we're currently surviving, and our goal going forward is to thrive. It was actually pretty good news that at 130 members, we were able to make money last year. Not a lot, but we didn't lose money. Very important. The next slide is the opportunities. As I just mentioned, a lot of the building has been upgraded. The last thing that we're going to work with the town to look at is the roof repair. It's my understanding that the roof has been reviewed by an expert, and the staff has a report that they're reviewing and that we'll talk about shortly. There'd been a thought that if there needed to be a roof repair, that we might work together on a joint OTF fund to source the money for that. We've had preliminary discussions with the Midland Curling Club regarding future direction. This is not a new initiative. This has been undertaken multiple times in the past. Hasn't gone very far. be my layman's opinion that everybody says it makes sense that we have one club. But when push comes to shove, as long as it's my club. So we're in the early stages of getting that dialogue on the table, trying to pull together some of the facts and to keep clear of the emotion. But this is something that, when you open the doors of a curling club, you spend $130,000. 50 grand to put in the ice, another 50 grand for the utilities, and then other costs. So if you can do one bag of that money as opposed to two, there's about $130,000 opportunity here. So we're talking about it. And our vision, and this might sound a little crazy when you first hear about it, but we'd like to think that Penetang Midland can become the curling capital of the world. See, I already got someone laughing at me. And the thought here, and a local, very famous curler, I asked him about this. I said, Glenn, who else in the world could claim to be the curling capital? And he thought about it for a minute and he said, they couldn't. We can do this. So as we look forward to the town of Penetang, reaching out there to have an aggressive brand and looking to be successful in the future, we'd like to think that curling could be a piece of that story. Thank you.
Thank you, Stu. Members of council, any comments or questions regarding the presentation from Councillor Darash?
Thank you very much, Mr. Spires, for that presentation. I really enjoyed it. Just the one question. You mentioned here that the income from the club for this year was about 136,000.
Yep.
Do you kind of know how much comes from registrations, curling registrations, how much rent from rentals, bar, maybe fundraising or sponsorships? Do you kind of have a breakdown to where those
Yes,
the
I
income
do.
comes from? Thank you.
The membership for this fiscal year was 42,000. That's down from where it should have been because of some rebates that we gave. The bar income was 45,000. Rentals 22,000, advertising and sponsors 23,000. Well, those are the main four things that we focus on.
Any other comments or questions? Councillor Bunker.
Thank you. Thanks for being here, Mr. Spires. The last time you and I spoke, I was inquiring about all the new investments that were made in the club this past year. Did everything work fine? Is everything over the last winter work in accordance with your plans?
Thanks for that question. Everything worked outstanding. And as a result, our maintenance costs were down.
Stu, can you just see if your mic's on? I think it's off.
It's the light's on. Is that better? Okay. Yeah, so the utility costs were down. We think that the new system's using less electricity. Now, you turn on the ice plant, it's $5,000 a month in electric charges. Big deal. So it's working better and we had less maintenance and we had no issues. And it's a great question because with all those changes, your confidence level that everything's going to be perfect, to be honest with you, kept me up at night.
Any other members? Councillor Marshall.
Thank you very much for the presentation. This was great to hear. And I do like the idea of being a Mecca. We are looking at our strategic plan and we're talking about active community, and curling is a great winter activity. Winters can be long. So I think that's, it's timely that we think about this and how we look at it. One of the things, we had with Winterama, you guys opened your doors on the Friday night. I had the pleasure of, watching the fireworks and being at the fire and being inside, and that was really great. So I hope that we can continue to really leverage those partnerships when there are events going on. And I don't know if it means looking at more of a year-round plan, but you have a really nice patio and a beautiful sunset that and a liquor license that no one else has that view. And when you talk about generating a revenue of $45,000 just on the bar alone, I'm just, somewhere to go on a Friday night for a drink after work. I think there's been some really great opportunities, and just like I said, that night at Winterama, and I understand the concerns with taking shoes off and the integrity of the ice, which is so important, but it's really great to see because it was packed in there and it was a really positive evening. And I hope to see more things like that jointly come together.
Thanks for that question. Our objective is to have the club packed. I like your word. That's our goal. In all honesty, with the tough years that we've had, and the financial situation and uncertainty, that made things difficult. And we're 100% volunteers. So the person that opens the door to start this up is a volunteer. But we have a fair amount of enthusiasm around getting those types of events to be regular occurrences. So we look forward to working with you.
Any other members have any other comments or questions? I just have one. I think it was about 2015. The Penetanguishene Curling Club hosted the provincial Scotties.
Yep.
I think it was a last minute opportunity because it failed at another opportunity and came here. I think it was tremendous. I think there was a great media pickup. I think the curling club, the Council Marshall, like it was packed. Your final slide, you talked about being the world capital. Has there been more discussion about that, more planning about that, more thinking about that? And what, if any, can we do to help support?
Wow, that's a mouthful. So I've talked to a few of the key players that would have to be a part of home marketing that initiative, and they're all on board. I've been working with the president of the Midland Curling Club that we would have that same objective. So it's my belief that step one needs to be that we combine the curling clubs. And then as we work that process and get curling thriving and get some significant income flowing, we can look forward to what it takes and begin the planning process. We'd like to think that those Pinty's events that are on TV throughout the year, we'd like to host one. We'd like to have some really exciting things going on around curling. I got to be careful how much I get out in front of my own blocking and talk about, but we're getting some energy around it.
Thank you for coming tonight, Mr. Spires. I appreciate it. And thanks for all you're doing at the Curling Club.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Next item on the agenda is our adoption minutes not already confirmed. We have that the following minutes of council meetings be confirmed and adopted as circulated to council for June 14th, 2023. We'll look for a mover. Councillor Marsh and seconder, Deputy Mayor LaRose. Comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? And that is carried. 11 is our consent agenda. We have nothing this evening. Number 12 is matters for consideration. We have a couple. 12A. It's regarding the removal of the holding symbol for 280 Watson Road. That the zoning bylaw amendment ZA 6-2023 to remove the holding symbol H for the property municipally known as 280 Watson Road be approved. And the council pass a bylaw to amend a comprehensive zoning bylaw 2022-17 to enact zoning amendment 6-2023. I'll look for a mover. Councillor LaRue, seconder. Councillor Drush. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? And that is carried. 12B is regarding a provincial policy statement in place to grow blending and proposed Bill 97. That the Council of the Town of Penetanguishene directs staff to submit comments to the Province of Ontario responding to ERO 019-6813 on the blending of the provincial policy statement and a place to grow, a growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, and the following: confirmation that the rural and agricultural policies of the proposed provincial planning statement 2023 will not apply to primary settlement areas previously identified. Indicate that the town does not support the changes to the proposed provincial planning statement that would permit lot creation in agricultural and rural areas, and indicate that the town is supportive of the blending of the provincial documents, but provide caution around the focus on provision of housing above all other matters of public interest such as the environment, infrastructure, or community character. We'll look for a mover. Councilor Marshall, seconder, Deputy Mayor LaRose. Comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? And that is carried. 12C is regarding the town entrance sign. I think for this one, we didn't go to committee of the whole. So maybe Jeff, I'll see if you want to introduce or if you want a member of your team introduce it. I know we have a couple of members of public. We didn't do this normally in committee of the whole, so I'll let them speak to it before council votes on this. So do you want to introduce CO Lees and then any member of your team that wants to speak to this?
Thank you, Worship. I'll ask our Director of Rec to provide a brief overview of the report and why it's coming through the council process as opposed to the committee process, and then hand it back to you, Your Worship.
Thank you.
Thank you, Worship. So the Gateway project is something that started back in 2018, quite some time ago. And it was the consultation point was the Heritage Committee, given that the Angels have heritage designation. So we were looking to, council gave us direction to redesign and rethink the town gateway. When we consulted with the Heritage Committee of the day, they said, you know, what makes them significant is that they provided that sense of arrival to the town of Penetanguishene. So I said, let's re-establish that and move them to the true municipal border because they've been lost in the buildup of the town over time. The town sign was also seeing the end of its useful life. At that time, we knew we'd get about another 3-5 years out of it. We gave it a quick paint job to buy us until we got to construction. So after we consulted with the Heritage Committee, we did some public consultation. We put an ad in the paper. We had public consultation back in 2018 right here in council chambers, and then finalized some engineering designs. The project would have gone to construction and all of this ahead of time. However, we found a grant opportunity with the federal government. As you know, that delayed the whole process by a year, as well as delays from the pandemic from a variety of reasons. We procured the sign apart and separate from the construction of the Angels. In keeping with our procurement policy, we were to solicit to try and source 5 different proposals, 3 proposals. We reached out to 5 companies. We only had 1 respond to the RFP, but they did submit 4 proposals. As this is a project that started with the Heritage Committee, we brought those proposals to them to review and provide an opinion on. And as noted in the staff report, they've recommended the second option, which staff support as well. The reason that it's going straight to council is that the proposal indicated it would take 3 months for the sign to propose. We're looking at to construct and install. We're looking to launch this by Franco-Ontarian Day, September 25th, which is why we're trying to expedite the process to ensure that the sign will accompany the relocation of the Angels and the construction. I hope that answers all your questions.
Thank you, Sherry. I appreciate that. Any members of council comments or questions? And I might see if Sarah, if you would mind putting the when you have a moment, maybe if you could illustrate the sample on the board for members to see of the public. Any members of council have any comments or questions regarding this? I'll just bring forward tonight. I did speak to Councillor Waters earlier, and he can't be here tonight. He was hoping that council would defer this item. There's a referral item in our committee of the whole for planning regarding electronic signs. I don't think it's directly related to this, but he was hoping that that could be deferred. That I said I'd bring it forward. I'm not suggesting I'm going to move that. I said I'd bring it forward. If members want to move a deferral, we could. We'll see if someone brings that motion for, but I wanted to air that. That was a comment he wanted to bring forward. So any members, any comments or questions on this item? None? Sarah, any luck with that? Okay. Do any members of public wish to speak about this item before we move on with voting on this tonight? What I would ask, if you're able to, I'll get you to go to the podium. If not, you can speak from there. I'll recite what you state, but I just want to make sure we have it on the record. That's fine. I can hear you, but just we're broadcasting this, so we can't hear it unless it's on a microphone.
Okay. Hi, I'm Fran Morrow. I've been, I guess, a native of Penetanguishene since I was 9. Guess that's not a native, but anyway, the angels have always been a symbol of our town, but there is no designation whatsoever on it that it says it's the entry to Penetanguishene. It just says Ontario and Quebec. Anyway, and I just think that moving them somewhere else, especially down around the corner by Bill Lydiard's, is just, anyway, I just have to say that it just, a lot of people just feel that it really is, should still stay where it is. Anyway, that's all I can say.
Thank you, Fran, for your comments. I appreciate that. And I'll turn to you, Celis, for clarifying. This motion for us tonight for the sign proper. It's not about the angels. If you can just clarify that for us, like council has already deliberated on the angels proper. That was done previously, and tonight we're specifically speaking to the sign. Can you just clarify? And if you just can provide a little clarity on maybe some engagement that occurred with the angels decision, just to help us out, please.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. I'll just give a kind of a high level and then I'll ask our Director of Rec just to speak about the specific engagement. So the report that's in front of you is with respect to choosing the town entrance sign. There are a number of options that have been presented. Staff have articulated in the report the process that we've gone through to get to where we are today with respect to the town sign, with a staff recommendation being option 2, which I believe Sarah has up on the screen now. With respect to engagement, there was previous engagement that was done, as well as previous communication that has been sent out as it relates to the Angels relocation. So maybe I can just ask our Director of Rec just to speak with respect to that consultation, Your Worship.
Thank you so much.
Sorry, Celis, can you repeat the consultation with respect to?
The public consultation as it relates to the Angels and this process as a whole.
Yes, so that was all done in 2018, previous, what I spoke to previously.
Thank you so much. Do any other members of public wish to speak to this sign that's before us tonight and what we're discussing? Seeing none, I'll look to. Yes, I'll have you, even if you can go to the podium for us, please.
Good evening. My name is Anna Sharon. I just want to say, everybody talks about consultation, and this has been out to the public. How many people attended this meeting? Does anybody know? Because I've heard about the Angels moving and the sign, but I don't remember recalling that there was a public meeting for people to actually go and voice their opinion. Now, if this happened in 2018, I do have to say, I do travel, and I may have been away, but I can honestly say that with an important decision with the Angels, somebody would have come back and sort of said, Anna, do you know what's going on? And I can honestly say that I didn't hear that. So I'm a bit confused as to how all this gets done, approved, and here you have people in the audience that are saying, leave it where it is. I don't know. I think I need clarification on what's going on as well. And I'm sorry to say, I was not aware of it.
Thank you. And just for clarity, this evening, the decision regarding the angel movement is a decision that's already been made. Tonight, we're not debating, discussing the movement of the angels proper. Tonight is this sign that's before us. That's the potential sign that we're going to deliberate and vote on, separate from the angels moving. Again, that's a decision that's been done. But I'll just ask our director, Sherry, can you just speak to the consultation with the sign. I believe this went to our Heritage Committee recently. Can you just speak to how did we get to this point? If you can help with that, I'd appreciate that.
Thank
This
you,
sign.
Worship. With respect to the sign, so the proposals were reviewed by staff. There were none that we needed to eliminate for any reason, and we brought it to the Heritage, the Museum and Heritage Advisory Committee, who has been our sounding board for this project since its conception.
Thank you. Councilor.
Your worship, thank you. I actually sit on the Heritage Board as well as the Museum Board. And it did come before the Penetanguishene Centennial Museum Board and the Heritage Committee. And the number 2 choice was unanimous by all members.
Thank you, Councilor. So just for clarity, just for everyone, this tonight's not about angels, it's about a sign. We had this on our agenda last month. We brought it forward to this month to give people to participate. And that's what tonight's about. I'll look for one final call from a member of council. Any further comments or questions on this item? Okay, we have a motion. Sorry, Councilor Vadabunker.
Sorry, Worship. I just want to say that I like what's being recommended. I think it's a very attractive sign. And I think it'll be a nice feature at the entrance to town. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Vadabunker. We have a motion that option 2, which is the option that's before us on the screen tonight, that option 2 be selected for the new town entrance sign. I'll look for a mover. Councilor LaRue. I'll look for a seconder. Deputy Mayor LaRose. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? And that is carried. Thank you, everyone, for your comments and questions on this item tonight. Number 13 is our presentation and consideration of reports regarding committee of the whole. So after our council meeting, we move into committee of the whole, and tonight is when we look and further ratify and discuss those items. So we'll look for each of the chairs to bring forward their motions from last meeting. Good for our session. So we'll turn to Deputy Mayor LaRose for the Recreation Community Services section report.
Thank you, Worship. Last month, we had, looks like about 3 items that were on our consent agenda, which we don't have to deal with. And B was our matters for consideration. We had a museum archive activities report and a Winterama growth report. And I believe that was about all.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So we have a motion that the recommendations contained with the committee of the whole report regarding the Recreation Community Services section be approved. Is moved by the Deputy Mayor LaRose. Seconder, Councilor Marshall. Further comments or questions? Call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? That is carried. I'm going to turn to Councilor Vadabunker for the Planning and Development Services section, please.
Thank you, Worship. And again, I'd like to thank Councilor LaRue for chairing that portion of the committee of the whole meeting. There were 4 items that were, a number of items were considered, but the 3 main items I want to bring forward to discuss tonight. First of all, committee is recommending that council approve the plan of subdivision and conditions of approval for the property located at 123 Robert Street East. Committee is also recommending that council approve the updates to the business recognition policy to provide a procedure to celebrate new and longstanding businesses in the creation of a business database. And finally, committee is recommending that council give direction to staff to initiate an amendment to the zoning bylaw regarding commercial floor space on the main floor buildings in the downtown and waterfront zones. And that staff, that the application be deemed complete and a public notice be given for a future public meeting. There were no referrals, Your Worship, that were brought forward at that meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Vadabunker. We have a motion that the recommendations contained within the committee of the whole report relating to planning and development services section be approved. Moved by Councilor Vadabunker, second by Councilor Marshall. Further comments or questions? I thought the councilor would want it. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? That is carried. Councilor Marshall on the Transportation Environmental Services section, please.
We had two reports on the consent agenda. It was the Drinking Water Quality Management Audit Report for 2022-23. The Q1 Transit Report was also brought forward. Two items for discussion and moving forward by council. The first one was the amendment to the traffic and overnight parking bylaw. And the second one was to support the 5-year stormwater maintenance plan. And that was everything for us.
Thank you, Councillor Marchand. We have a recommendation contained in the Committee of the Whole report relating to Transportation Environmental Services section be approved, moved by Councillor Marchand, second by Councillor LaRue. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? That is carried. Councillor DeRush for Finance and Corporate Services section, please.
Certainly. So the Finance and Corporate Services had three sets of minutes in its consent agenda. Minutes from the April 24th Penetanguishene Public Library Board, March 2nd Police Services Board, and the April 26th Special Police Services Board. There were three matters for consideration. The first was the presentation of the 2024 budget guidelines. It was recommended that the first draft of the 2024 budget be prepared with no greater than a 6% budget increase. The second matter recommended updates and amendments to the establish and regulate a fire department bylaw. And the final matter for consideration was the salary administration policy. It was recommended that the updates and amendments related to the comparator group and periodic market reviews within the salary administration policy be approved. This motion was defeated. And so on behalf of the section, I ask that council approve the recommendations as presented.
Thank you very much, Councillor DeRush. We have a recommendation contained within the Committee of the Whole report relating to Finance and Corporate Services section be approved, moved by Councillor DeRush, second by Councillor Vadabunker. Further comments or questions? Councillor Vadabunker.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to comment on the budget guideline report, and I'd like to pull the update on the salary administration policy for discussion.
Okay, comment on budget and pull the salary report.
Salary administration, yes.
Okay, why don't we start with the budget comment?
Thank you. As I said earlier, I watched the discussion and debate on the budget guidelines on YouTube after I returned from vacation, and I'm not going to repeat everything that was said. It was a good discussion, good debate. There was lots of points of view that were expressed. I wanted to make 2 points. The first point is that this is just a guideline. It's a guideline to staff in terms of direction from council in terms of how to approach the preparation of the budget. And I thought it was a reasonable guideline. So I would support it. But I also want to make another point is that we have to be very conscientious as we move forward through the budget process, because as a municipality, we have one of the highest tax rates in the county of Simcoe. And so if you take a house assessed say at $350,000 in Penetanguishene, and you take that exact assessment across municipalities in Simcoe County, we have one of the highest, person owning that house would pay one of the highest rates of taxation. So we just have to be mindful. I don't want to repeat that discussion that took place, because there was lots of discussion about balance and how we have to, balance needs and wants and whatnot. But I just thought I'd make those 2 comments. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. And you also mentioned the second one, the salary one. Were you moving an amendment, or were you just speaking to the second one as well?
Thank you, Worship. I'd like to pull that one because I'd like to have a discussion on that one as opposed to a comment.
Okay, I'll look to Madam Clerk for a second. Should we vote on the ones that's here and then do that one separately, or just see where we land?
Yeah, we can certainly do that. Vote on the rest of them, and then Councillor Vadabunker can proceed.
Okay, so we have a mover, we have a seconder. We're going to vote on them except for the salary one that Councillor Vadabunker wants to look at. Further comments or questions on all of them other than the salary one? We'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? That is carried. So the remaining item now is the salary report. I'm going to turn to you, Councillor Vadabunker, for your comment.
Thank you. I support the update to the salary administration policy. I do have one concern though, and that is the deletion of the time frame that's in the policy. The current policy talks about formal salary reviews being done 3 to 5 years, and I think the proposal in the report is that be deleted. I have a concern about that. And the concern I have is that there's a financial implication with respect to undertaking these formal salary reviews. They cost between $20,000 and $25,000 if we hire a consultant to have them done, and it's an expense. And to not have a time frame, 3 to 5 years, on which to plan for these types of expenditures, I don't think it's wise. I think it's important to have a time frame, and then council can budget and staff have an idea in terms of when a cost is going to be incurred to undertake a formal review. And when I say formal, that means that we engage the consultant. And in the intervening years, there's lots of informal compensation reviews that are undertaken, and they're undertaken by other municipalities, which the town participates in. So we get circulated these surveys, we participate in, and as a reward for participating, we get a copy of the results. So we get this information kind of informally, which our HR staff can kind of evaluate and determine, are we falling behind? Are we staying the same? So there's lots of information that comes in the intervening period. But when we do a formal review, as I said, there's a cost, and we should have that kind of time, 3 to 5 years. That's reasonable. So I'd like to suggest that stay in. I know, Your Worship, you had proposed that amendment, and that was defeated as well. If you'd care to introduce it, tonight, but from my standpoint, I'd like to move that the update on the salary administration policy be approved. If you want to move your amendment, that's fine. I could also do that. I'll leave it up to you in terms of what you want to do.
I'm chairing, so I'll ask if you want to move that amendment. You're happy to. But can we just articulate the motion, or does Madam Clerk have the motion?
Thank you, Your Worship. I am following along, and I do have sort of an amended motion if Councillor Vadaboncourt is interested in terms of what he's thinking to propose to council.
Thank you, Worship. I'm happy to hear the clerk's motion.
So we have that the updates and amendments related to the comparator group included within this report relating to salary administration policy 008-2019 be approved be approved.
Councillor Vadaboncourt.
So thank you for that, Madam Clerk. The only thing I would suggest, the staff recommendation was that the time frame within the policy be deleted. And I would suggest that be that remain as is in the current policy.
CLEs. Thank you, Your Worship. I'll just provide a little bit of clarity. So the original recommendation that came forward talked about that the updates and amendments related to the comparator group and periodic market reviews included in the report be approved. We've removed the periodic market reviews based on the comments that we heard from Councillor Vadaboncourt and was originally proposed by Mayor Rawson. So the motion that Madam Clerk just spoke about is only identifying approval of the comparator group amendments, not the periodic reviews. Hopefully that provides a little bit of clarity. That essentially is the motion that was brought forward by Mayor Rawson 4 weeks ago. And I believe what Councillor Vadaboncourt is speaking about. So that should be crystal clear in terms of what I believe Councillor Vadaboncourt is proposing. Mr. Mayor, at some point when appropriate, I wouldn't mind speaking just from an administrative level, what this means from a staff perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we go too far, Councillor Vadaboncourt, we have a motion. Madam Clerk just spoke it. Are you comfortable with that motion as you presented?
Yes, I am, Your Worship. Based on the CAO's explanation, I think it covers what I was looking for. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to look for a seconder, and then we'll open up for discussion. Second by Councillor Leroux. Now we'll open up for council comments and questions. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. When you were talking, Jeff, you said we're going to take away the periodic things. Are we putting in a timeline? Are we putting in 4 years, 5 years, 6 years? Are we going with a specific time?
COLs.
Thank you, Your Worship. What would happen is it would default back to what was in the policy, which identifies every 3 to 5 years. We removed that and instead added that we'll conduct periodic market reviews. But what would happen is it would revert back to the every 3 to 5 years, which was in the original policy.
So just for clarity, the policy was presented, it wasn't ratified. So it defaults back to the way it was. And we're back to where we were with status quo. Okay. Further comments or questions from members of council? Councilor Marchand.
I'm not sure if we have to go through this motion. Can we then put back all the other recommendations and put those forward as a motion? Because there's no sense of piecemealing this policy. It was presented with 3 items to be addressed as it related to this policy. And it was just, that was the one that was the sticking point that we didn't proceed to move forward with it, because we did talk about revising the recommended municipal comparators, which I think absolutely should and needs to be done in this policy. Update the market review schedule, and then consideration of compensation review at the 55th percentile. There were 3 amendments to that policy. And if we're just going to address one, I just need clarity, because I'm trying to understand if we're reopening this entire piece or if we're just making one amendment, because then I would want to table the other 2 as well.
Thanks, Councilor Marchand. So it was defeated at committee of the whole. It came forward tonight. Councilor Vadabonker wanted to pull that and discuss it. He presented a new motion. Nothing's approved. Councilor Vadabonker brought forward a new motion. That motion's before us for discussion tonight. Now is the opportunity to amend before we vote on. We have a mover and a seconder on the motion that's before us, so we can get clarity if we need that. But we're looking at one item, which was the motion by Councilor Vadabonker for clarity. If we need clarity, we can ask the Madam Clerk to speak to that. But that's what we're discussing right now. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. So procedurally, the motion on the floor at the last meeting was defeated. We're taking this exact same motion. We're now amending it by removing that period of time that that the reviews would be done. And the rest of the report will flow through as presented within the report, other than that specific piece.
Do any other members have any comments, questions? Councilor Durush.
Thank you very much. I have a memory, but a very short one. Could staff explain again why they recommended to remove the years and go to a periodic review? I would like that re-explained so that I can make a good decision. Thank you.
That's not before this motion though. That wasn't before the motion that Councilor Vadabonker's put forward. His motion was not about that element. So maybe for clarity, let's look at the motion from the clerk. Let's see what it says specifically for clarity from Councilor Marchand's piece.
So the motion brought forward was amending the original motion, and the motion is that the updates and amendments related to the comparator group included within this report relating to the salary administration policy 008-2019 be approved.
Councilor Vadabonker.
Thank you, Worship. So when I looked at the report and I read the draft or the changes to the policy, it dealt with 2 items. There was some changes to the list of municipalities that are in our comparator group. And then there was the deletion of the every 3 to 5 years. My concern was that deletion of the every 3 to 5 years. The motion that has come forward addresses that. The rest of it, the rest of the changes, comparator group, all the other things, I'm fine with that. The only other change, as I said, was with respect to the list of comparators, and I'm fine with that. So that's why I proposed the motion. Thank you.
I think we don't have clarity on the motion from some members here. Stacey, would you mind saying that for us one more time? I just want to be clear that everyone knows what we're discussing, debating, and voting on.
So Councilor Vadabonker has brought forward an amended motion from the original to remove the periodic times that the policy would, or that the comparator groups would be reviewed professionally by the consultant. So that was just removed simply from that original recommended motion. to specifically just approve the comparator group within the report for the salary administration policy.
Cealise, you had a comment that you wanted to make about this?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to articulate, and I think I shared this 4 weeks ago. The original recommendation that came forward was a suggestion made by the consultant. Upon further review by staff and even in conversations with other municipalities, as well as a clause within the policy, staff believe that we have the ability to do what we need to do should the market dictate that further review would be required. So I really just wanted to articulate to committee, to council, Your Worship, that staff have a good level of comfort with the amended motion that's being brought forward.
Thank you. Further comments or questions? Further comments or questions? We'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? And that is carried. Madam Clerk, that was an amended report from the FCS section. Do we need to also vote on that as amended?
No, it was an original motion brought forward by Councillor Vadaboncourt, and because we've handled the other parts of the report, we can move on.
Thank you. Just want to play by the rules. 14th presentation, consideration of report for special committees. We have none. 15's motions of which notice has previously been given. We have none. 16 is notices of motion. Do any members of council have a notice of motion tonight? We have none. 17 is a consideration of bylaws. Before I do all these, do any members of council have any bylaw you want to pull for further discussion? Okay. That the council of the town of Penetanguishene introduce the following bylaws: 2023-32 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2004-101 as amended, business licensing regulations pertaining to taxi cabs, taxi cab brokers, owners and drivers in the town of Penetanguishene. 2023-33 being a bylaw to authorize the entering into an agreement with GFL Environmental Inc. for utility exposure, pole replacement, water main breaks, etc. by vacuum excavation. 2023-34 being a bylaw to authorize the entering into an agreement with Roto Mill for road construction maintenance. 2023-35 a bylaw to authorize the execution of a consent agreement regarding the lands municipally known as 1230 Sandy Bay Road, consent application B1-2022. Bylaw 2023-36 being a bylaw regulating the setting of open air fires, including establishing the times during which open air fires may be set, and to repeal bylaw 2012-66. Bylaw 2023-37 being a bylaw to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2022-17 of the Corporation of the Town of Penetanguishene to remove the holding H symbol from 280 Watson Road. Bylaw 2023-38, a bylaw to establish and regulate a fire department for the town of Penetanguishene. And that the bylaws be read a first time, deemed to be read a second, a third time, and carried. I'll look for a mover. Councilor Marsha, seconder. Deputy Mayor LaRose. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? And that is carried. Number 18 is our County of Simcoe update. Every meeting we like to give an update what's happening at the County of Simcoe. The mayor and the deputy mayor are the council members that go to county. Our deputy mayor gives an update on what's been happening in the county. So I'll turn it to you, Deputy Mayor, for an update on the County of Simcoe.
Thank you, Your Worship. We'll keep it quick and short tonight. Back in June 27th, the county received a presentation from the Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit about a wrap-up of COVID-19 pandemic. The report states that things are starting to get back to normal, and their biggest takeaway right now is that lots of lessons were learned. So when this happens again, which it might, at least we'll be in a little better shape. One of the other things we received that took a lot of time, it seemed, was a letter from the town of Wasaga Beach requesting our support for a high school. They stated during their presentation that they are the largest town in the province of Ontario population-wise without a high school. So the county worked through a number of discussions and we're sending off a letter for that. The other thing that happened is the mayor and I attended part 2 of the county strategic plan process. We've done one each every 2 weeks when we were down there at the end of our meetings, and that's going very well. You know, you can imagine with 32 councillors, the amount of input that they have and the size of the county and what's going on, but it's going very well, and we're kind of looking for the final report, which should be early in the fall. So with that will do us for now.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Moving on, 19 is our question period from the media and public. Do any members of the media public have a question? I ask you to go to the podium if you can, please. Well.
My name is Sandy Gilbank, and a lot of people in the town want to know what's happening to the Penetang Hospital. There's a lot of stories going around there about low rental housing, about a drug rehabilitation. And what was the other? There was one more. Like what's happening with that?
Appreciate the comment. Maybe when we're done the meeting, I'll direct you to the CEO. It's not owned by the municipality. I believe it's privately been purchased. I don't know if there's plans that have been released about that yet, but potentially the CEO may have information, can connect you with the landowner when or if the time is right. But as of now, from my perspective, I don't know of any public information been released. I'm sure when there is, and when we have it, we will release that information.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other members have any comments or questions? Thank you. I appreciate. And the question or comment was about to leave the Angels and put the sign where we like. And again, the Angel discussion has already occurred. If you do want more feedback or comments about it, I'll direct you to the CEO again. And between him and his team, they can help you with that process, what's unfolded. But that was a decision that has previously been done. A lot of work's been done to this point, and I'm sure Jeff, you'd be happy to help articulate what that was and what that looked like. Do any other members of the media public have any comments or questions? Seeing none, we're going to move on to our announcements and inquiries. Any members of council have any announcements or inquiries? Seeing none, I have a little one. I'll be away in August, so Deputy Mayor is going to chair our council meeting. I will be connecting on Zoom. I hope I have a better connection than Councillor Bonaventura, but we'll see in September if it was any better. So we'll see you back live and in person in September. 21 is our confirmation bylaw, that the confirmation bylaw 2023-39 be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. We'll look for a mover. Deputy Mayor Lareau, seconder, Councillor Marchand. Call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We're going to adjourn our meeting at 8:37. Thank you so much for everyone's participation. We'll continue our next meeting, our committee of the whole, in about 5 minutes. We'll allow a bio break, water refills, then we'll get started with our committee of the whole. Thank you. All right, good evening, council. We're going to call our committee of the whole meeting to order for Wednesday, July the 12th, 2023 at 8:46 PM. We have number 2 is our approval of the agenda. It's recommended that the committee of the whole agenda for July the 12th, 2023 be approved as presented. A mover, Councillor Marshall, seconder, Councillor Drush. Comments or questions? Call for the vote. All in favor and opposed? That's carried. 3, declaration of pecuniary interest. Either now or at the time of. Any member have a declaration of pecuniary interest? See none. 4 is presentations and delegations. We have one this evening from Nancy Johnson from McSweeney and Associates regarding our 20-year community-based strategic plan. Welcome. I'll have you come to the podium to present our community-based strategic plan, and thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me in. Sorry, Your Worship. Sorry, just to quickly, I just wanted to ensure that Nancy was aware of the 10-minute time frame for a
I'm
presentation.
gonna be quick.
Okay, perfect. I know it's been a long meeting. So yes, I wasn't aware, but I'll be quick. So thanks for inviting me, and I'm looking forward to presenting on the Town of Penetanguishene's 20-year community-based strategic plan. So we'll just move forward. Oh, okay. Thanks. I was going to say. Okay, great. So we're just we started back in February of 2023 to do the community based strategic plan. Just talking about the town of Penetanguishene, just to start off with, just a little bit of an overview, as you know, that the town does provide a significant number of services to its citizens. It's governed by this committee, the council and elected council, and its affairs of the town are also assisted by staff. The town is projected to surpass 13,000 residents by 2032, which is a substantial number of new people coming into the community based on the fact that it's around 10,000 right now. And so things will be changing. Whether anybody likes it or not, it's going to be changing. Okay, so why a strategy? Why did you decide on doing a strategy? Really, it better equips the town to decide on future priorities, helps with infrastructure planning and budget development, which you're going through, establishes a framework for development of other municipal plans, and assists in guiding the town in decision-making planning and the execution of key initiatives throughout the next 20 years. So really what makes it a success? The success of the strategic plan, to start off with, was initiated by the town, but really at the end, you hope that the community is going to embrace the community-based strategic plan, because it is a community strategic plan, and embrace that for over the next 20 years. There was a mission and vision that was that you already had for Penetanguishene, and we looked at that mission and vision and reworded it slightly based on a lot of the information that was provided to us through the consultations. So really the mission around the town providing residents and businesses with high quality services, sustainable infrastructure, financially responsible manner, fostering an engaged community and a diversified economy, while preserving the distinct heritage and natural environment. And you'll see that throughout the presentation as well, that those things have come out. And the vision: our waterfront community is a destination and a starting point, respectful of its history and natural environment, offering a rich culture, active lifestyle, well-planned growth, employment opportunities, and a wonderful opportunity to live one's dream. So just a little bit about the process that we went through for the community-based strategic plan. It's really about step 1, discovering, defining, developing, and delivering. And I'm going to go through each one of those quickly. So the first one is about discovering. We want to discover what Penetanguishene was all about. We started off with a document review, which we, you can go to the next slide. The document review, which was 13 strategic documents that we looked at, it's actually in the report that we provided to you. The other thing that we did is a community analysis, and the community analysis really is details on your community, statistics, demographics, that sort of thing. So there is a full copy of that you have. Next. And then the next thing is about defining. So we did consultations with the community. So what we found in the consultations, I want to go to the next one, is first of all, in order to get input from the community, there were a number of different ways of accessing that information. And it was communicated through a number of different social media outlets or channels, and the website, emails, and physical copies were all provided to get that information out about the consultations. So what we did for the consultations and you can go ahead, it's online surveys. We did focus groups and one-on-one interviews and an open house. And that was all around the focus group. So, and we had a number of questions that we asked. So the online survey was amazing, 232 responses from a small community of 10,000 people. That's fantastic. Focus groups, 29 community participants. The interviews there were 23. And then we also held an open house after the focus groups, and we had 9 community participants, but we also had the steering committee out as well. So it was just an opportunity for anybody who didn't have a chance to participate. So next. We also took out of the information that we gathered through the consultations a score, which is strengths. It's a different sort of SWOT analysis, but looking at strengths, challenges, opportunities, aspirations, and results. And I just wanted to put up or just show you what the strengths were. The major strengths are really, these are the major strengths, and it's in detail in the strategy, but around the natural beauty of the community, the small town feel, community strategic direction, meaning there are a number of strategies, different strategies in place that are providing that direction, the cultural history, and you have some large employment assets as well. And then some of the challenges are location. We heard, oh, you're at the end of the road. That can be a challenge. It can also be something, it can also be positive. Aging infrastructure, aging population, and the residential, commercial, and industrial base is a challenge. There, you could expand on all of those. And then the next step is around developing the strategy. So we had a working session, and you can go to the next slide. And what happened at the working session is there were 27 community stakeholders plus staff and elected officials. This is where we came up with a number of themes, and people provided actions for the strategic plan. We also held an open house that night as well. So the virtual strategic, and after that, we had a virtual strategic action planning session with staff. And what we did there is that we have provided sort of an outline of all the actions and worked with the staff to determine the key strategic actions for the next 20 years. And now we're into the delivery stage where we're just presenting the final strategy, and an implementation plan will be provided after that. So right now what I'm going to, I just wanted to mention too about the steering committee, and just that it was comprised of key staff and elected officials. And throughout the process, the steering committee was integral in providing participation and reviewing a number of items throughout the process. So the outcome is really the themes, the objectives, and the actions. So we've got 5 themes that are community focused, and then we have 1 theme that's corporate initiatives. So we'll go through the first 5 themes. And theme 1 is all about creating a vibrant community with that small town feel, and really looking at those 3 objectives about Main Street, revitalizing Main Street, making Penetanguishene a vibrant community, developing those key properties in Penetanguishene, which is the 51 Dunlop, the dock, and there's 3 actions that are out there, and then providing a variety of housing options because we know housing is a big issue these days. The second theme is around being stronger together, and we talked about this a lot, and thinking sort of regionally to increase efficiencies, working with your neighbors, neighboring communities for both things like combined services and physical assets, and making sure that there's less duplication and trying to increase efficiencies. So there's 5 actions there. Theme 3 is being an inclusive Penetanguishene. We know that you have a really unique story to tell. It's very different than any other community that I've ever worked in, which is really exciting. And so it's really telling that story, engaging and acknowledging the Penetanguishene's historic cultures, the Anglophones and Francophones, and the Métis and Indigenous, and recognizing and encouraging volunteerism within Penetanguishene. So we heard that with the curling club and how important volunteers are for the community. Theme 4 is around healthy communities and really encouraging that healthy living by promoting enhancing recreational amenities and developing the community green initiatives that protect the natural environment, because the natural environment was one of your strengths. And then theme 5 is about identifying Penetanguishene's current visitor profile and promoting the current strengths. So really celebrating Penetanguishene and highlighting those heritage and culture. And then the last one is about corporate initiatives and under theme 6, and that's really internal. And we worked closely with staff and with Jeff and Kelly to really and had interviews also with council to talk about what are core things that are needed within the corporation. So it's really again about implementing corporate action plans that are in place, building partnerships, supporting staff, engaging the community, and the Simcoe County initiatives that are in place. So really what's come out of this are 40 community actions with 11 corporate actions, and that's to take place over the next 20 years. So we think it's all doable and realistic, and that you have lots of time to accomplish this. And that's it.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation tonight. Any members of council have any comments regarding the strategic plan presentation by Nancy tonight? Councilor Bunker.
Thank you, Worship. I just want to thank Nancy and her team for all their hard work on this. It was great as a member of the steering committee working with you, and as a member of council as well. So thank you. And it's a very impressive document that's emerged from this, and all the input that we got from the public and whatnot around those interactions has been great. And it's nice to see it reflected in the document. So thank you very much.
You've got a passionate community.
Councilor Marchand.
Thank you. The other thing I would reiterate and just would echo the same sentiments, the community engagement and everyone's enthusiasm around this is great. And I think as a new member of council, this is a great jumping off point to give us some direction. I think that's so important. I do commend the entirety of the report, which is comprised in our package. When I saw 400 pages that I had to read, I was really entrenched. It was really well put together. I really appreciated all of the other documents that govern our municipality, our Penetanguishene, and all the other pieces, all of the other plans that were incorporated. That was so important that there was that crossover, and that we've taken all of those pieces into consideration. And I'm a strat plan junkie, so I love the fact that, we have some themes, we've got objectives, and we've got these action plans, and it's really well mapped out in terms of low, medium, high in terms of achievements and the timeframes. And so I really commend the work that you and your staff did in the group, and pulling all the ideas together. And it was really, it's really great to see. So thank you for what you've brought forward to us in that report that was so comprehensive.
We had great participation from staff as well, and really provided a lot of input too. So they were fantastic.
Thank you. Any other members? Thank you so much, Nancy, for your work. We appreciate it. We'll be looking at this, I think, a little later in Councillor Drush's section, but thank you for being here tonight. Moving on is our council information package under number 5. Before we pull these ones, any members have any items on the CIP you want to pull for further discussion? I have just one, and I'll just turn to you, Ciolise, if you can speak to it. On the CIP for Wednesday, June the 21st, item number 2A, there's a piece there. It says Connect Penetanguishene Idea Page Submissions. First, I want to say thank you for those. And my second one is I've heard from members of public that say when they put in an inquiry, they don't always get a response. It could be we received it, or thank you, or we're going to do this, or it's going to go here. I appreciate it's here because this is, I think, a vehicle to communicate that we're hearing them. But can you just help me and help the community understand how or do we respond to people when they put in these suggestions and ideas, please?
Thank you, Your Worship. This has been a kind of a new endeavor, a new initiative. And I say new, relatively new within the last couple of years. We don't get a lot of feedback, a lot of comments on there. The intent is that we will respond to them to at least acknowledge that there's been a submission, as well as that there's an opportunity for senior leadership team to have some conversation and discussion about it. So I'll certainly take that back and something that we'll review at a staff level and ensure that we're responding. So I appreciate the feedback that we're getting. Thank you.
Thank you. And I really appreciate that they're here. I love the eyesight on that. We have a recommendation that the council information package have been given due consideration, be received for information. We'll look for mover. Councillor Marchand, Councillor Vadabonker. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor and opposed? That is carried. Number 6 is our section regarding transportation environmental services section. I'm going to turn the chair over to you, Councillor Marchand.
Thank you, Your Worship. For consent agenda this evening, that the following consent agenda items have been given due consideration, be received for information. Item 1, memo from the Director of Public Works, New Horizons for Senior Grant decision, senior transit fare funding. You'll note that in that memo, we have been declined in terms of the funding for that program, but we are continuing to investigate. The second memo is from the Director of Public Works with Payette Water System Secondary Supply Update. And looking for a mover on those. Deputy LaRose, seconder, Councillor DeRush. Any questions or comments about those items for the consent agenda? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. The next item for matters for consideration. The first item is the implementation of a new utility alternative locate protocol for Aecon Utilities, Picard Construction, and Ontario Waterworks, ENG 2013-10. Recommended that we enter into an agreement with Aecon Utility, Picard Construction, and Ontario Waterworks for the implementation of alternative locate agreement, and that staff be directed to bring forward the necessary bylaw for council for approval. Can I get a mover? Councillor Vadabonker, seconder. Councillor LaRue, any questions and comments about the report? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. Referral items, that the transportation environmental section endorse the following addition and existing referrals to upcoming agenda and staff. Stormwater management best practice and engagement standards. Q2 of this year that is updated to Q4 of 2023. Traffic calming measures on roads and sidewalk with a priority of streets with no sidewalks to Q2. It's updated and we're asked that it's being brought in Q3 of 2023. County of Simcoe Transit Connection Service Improvements, updated that this is going from the second quarter of 2023 to Q4. Review of highway and bylaw. This was, I believe, identified, Your Worship, you had brought it forward with regards to overnight parking. It did get addressed and that motion was approved at council tonight. So I think we can remove this one. Looking for a mover. Deputy LaRose, seconder, Councillor LaRue, and questions?
Just another item that I'd like to put forward to add to the referral list. I've been approached by a couple of RV owners who are looking for a facility where they could drop off, I guess is the term. I don't know if drop off, eliminate their black water from their RVs in town. So black water is basically the sewage in a recreation vehicle, and that has to be disposed of in an environmentally sound way. And one of the ways to be able to do that is to have a discharge point leading into your sewage treatment plant, and then it goes into the sewage treatment plant and gets treated. So I'm not sure what the opportunity, if there's an opportunity that exists or not within our community for that, but I'd like to see if staff could look at that as a potential for a service that we could provide to residents of Penetanguishene. Thank you.
Jeff, you're here tonight to represent Brian, but I understand that we do not provide that service currently at our water and wastewater treatment plant. Any comments that you would like to add?
No, sorry, through your worship. No, Councillor Marchand, that we're not configured right now to accept black water, so that's something we'd have to investigate.
So,
Councilor.
So if you're moving it, you need to have it second. Sorry. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'll second it.
Okay. Okay, the motion's been seconded by Mayor. So any other questions or comments with regards to that? All those in favor? Motion carried to add to the referral list. This is the first one for me, so thank you.
Madam Chair, I'm just wondering, is the clerk clear in terms of what I had requested?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions to be added on the referral? Okay. Do I have to have that motion passed with the referrals? Or are we good? Sorry.
You do have a mover and a seconder for the original group, which was the Deputy Mayor and Councillor Vadabon-Course. So you do need to call for that vote.
Thank you. All those in favor? Motion carried. Any questions from the media or public? Seeing none, back to you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Councilor Marchand. Number 7 is our Recreation Community Services section. I'm going to turn the chair to Deputy Mayor LaRose.
Thank you, Your Worship. Under 7A, under our consent agenda, the recommended action is that the following consent agenda items have been given due consideration, be received for information. Our first one is a memo from the Director of Rec and Community Services about Quest Art Angel Project. And our second one is Penetanguishene Public Library Board Minutes. So I'll look for a mover and a seconder to get that on the floor. Moved by Councillor Leroux, seconded by Councillor Marchand. Is there any questions or anybody want any of this pulled? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor, and that is carried. Moving down to 7B, we have matters for consideration, of which we have none. Moving down to C, we have referrals that the Recreation and Community Services section endorse the following additional and existing referrals to upcoming agendas and staff. So we have our Champlain Cultural Event, Winterama Growth and Expansion, Communities in Bloom Champion, Fee Waiver Request Policy, and a question about digital signs. Did anybody have anything to add or take away from that? Seeing none, I'll look for a mover and a seconder to accept them. Moved by Councillor DeRush, seconded by Councillor Vadabon-Cour. We'll call for the vote. All in favor, and that is carried. I believe we don't have any questions from the media or public, Your Worship, so it's back to you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Number 8 is our Planning and Community Development Services section. And turn the chair over to you, Councillor Vadabon-Cour.
Thank you, Worship. So we'll lead off with items under the consent agenda. And the recommended action is that the following consent agenda items having been given due consideration be received for information. We have 6 items. First item is the Committee of Adjustment meeting minutes of May 29th, 2023. Memo from the Municipal Law Enforcement Officer pertaining to parking enforcement related to private property. The third one is a memo from the Director of Planning and Community Development dealing with the second quarter Planning and Community Development Department update. Fourth is a memo from the Director of Planning and Community Development dealing with the 2023 capital project update. Number 5 is a memo from the planner dealing with the Community Improvement Plan annual update. And the last consent item is the Municipal Law Enforcement Officer monthly activity report. Does anybody have any comments or would like any of those items pulled? Yes, Your Worship.
I won't pull any, just a brief comment. I just really appreciate the details in some of these reports. Andrea, thank you for those. It just gives good insight and where we're at and the growth and the development. So thank you for the details in those reports.
Any other comments? I'll ask that the the memo from the Municipal Law Enforcement Officer dealing with parking enforcement on private property be pulled so that the director can elaborate a little bit more on the report. Any other comments or items to be pulled? Seeing none, may I have a mover then? Councillor Marchand, second, Councillor Roux. Any further comment? All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. And so we'll refer to the report dealing with parking enforcement on private property. This was a referral item. It's quite a detailed report. I'll just ask the director to tie in our municipal parking traffic and parking bylaw and how that relates to the content in the memo, if she could. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Vadabancourt. So the memo does speak to how parking enforcement on private property occurs. It was did leave out that the town's own traffic and parking bylaw, which is bylaw 2022-02 currently, does have 2 schedules, Schedule N and Schedule O of that bylaw, which specifies the fire routes where they are and where they're enforceable in terms of infractions as well. Schedule O is the private parking lots and their enforcement, where we have the authority under the Municipal Act to do that. So I just wanted to bring your attention to those. I would note that I think next month there's the amended traffic and parking bylaw coming forward to council to amend. So it will be updated, but that wasn't an area that was touched. So it should stay the same at the next revision.
Thank you, Madam Director. One of the reasons why I asked this item to be referred was to get an update with respect to parking enforcement on private property, in particular as it pertains to disabled parking or handicap parking. We've had that issue brought forward in this chamber, and there was a little bit of lack of understanding in terms of what the town's role is. And as been pointed out in the memo, and what the director has just emphasized, is that the town does have the ability and the authority to enforce parking on private property, in particular as it deals with disabled parking. And you'll note in the monthly bylaw update reports how there are statistics kept in terms of the amount of parking enforcement that takes place. So hopefully that information being out now in the public there will ease any misunderstanding on that particular matter. Does anybody else have any other comments on that? Can I have a mover then to accept the memo from the Municipal Law Enforcement Officer on parking enforcement related to private property? Deputy Mayor LaRose, and seconded by Councillor Darash. Any further comment? All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. Thank you. Moving on then to matters for consideration. We have one matter for consideration, and that is the revised tree protection bylaw. I'm going to read the motion. I'm going to look for a mover and a seconder to get it on the floor. We'll open it up for discussion. The recommended action that this report be received for information, and that staff be directed to conduct additional public consultation regarding the second draft of the proposed tree protection bylaw. I have a mover. Yes, Councillor Roux, a seconder, Councillor Marchand. So I'll put it, it's on the floor now. I'll ask the director just to elaborate a little bit on the report, what the next steps are and how it pertains, it relates to subdivisions and that type of thing. Madam Director?
Thank you very much, Councillor Vadaboncourt. So as noted in the staff report, this is a revised version of our proposed new tree protection bylaw. The town has an existing tree cutting bylaw, and so it applies to where permits for tree removals needs to take place. And so in the intervening time and with the new development that the town has seen, staff recognized that the bylaw really did need some attention and could do some work to improve it, especially around when trees are removed and how they're replaced in development applications. So that is really what we've tried to do, is clarify the process around where tree permits for removals are required, the guidelines about what's needed to do that or to replant as part of a development application, and where those rules do apply. So when we held the first, draft, we had an open house, a public meeting, and a survey. I would say we had a limited participation at those events, which we've heard tonight. Sometimes we need to get the message out a bit better with the community on what this means. So with the responses that we have received to the first draft, we have made those revisions. I think they're captured in the report, but we'd like to go back out to the community one more time and ensure that the public is aware of what this new tree protection bylaw means. What I would also say is in the report is one of the steps that we still want to look at doing here is dealing on the compensation side and the creation of a policy related to financial compensation that the town receives when trees are removed and not replanted. So that's an important goal too for the municipality. I think in the report, we note that some of the money we've collected so far through development is being used to assist in tree plantings for the Recreation and Community Development Department. I think the last piece I'll just touch on is it was a discussion we had at our section meeting, talking about how this tree protection bylaw and how engineering design of developments are intersecting and what we can do to help see that trees are actually retained as much as possible on the property instead of having to see them removed. And so I would note that I think this tree protection bylaw on the compensation piece is assisting in that. And developers are taking a look at what we're requiring and maybe having second thoughts about the way they're engineering and designing a site, as well, where you have an update project to our engineering development standards. And I know it's been closely linked to this project too. So that is coming forward in the future that for council to see.
Thank you, Madam Director. So any questions on the proposed tree protection bylaw? Okay, so the motion has been read. It's been duly moved and seconded. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. Thank you. Move on to the referrals, and we have 5 referrals. I'll read the motion that the Planning and Community Development Services section endorse the following additional existing referrals to upcoming agendas and staff. Municipal accommodation tax review, and that's due in Q3 of 2023. Vacant commercial property options, that is due Q3 of 2023. The ATV ORV pilot project, that is due to come back in Q4 of 2023. Update on bylaw enforcement on barrier-free parking spaces. We just had the conversation about that. And that when the report is brought forward to the August council meeting, that will most likely fall off. And the last item is the Beaulieu Drive road options, and that's to come back in Q3 of 2023. Are there any additional items that anybody wants to raise as a referral item? Seeing none, may I have a mover and a seconder? Mover, Deputy Mayor LaRose, and seconder, Councillor Darash. Any further comments or discussions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. Thank you. And I'll ask for any questions from the media and the public. There are none. Your worship, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Councillor Vadaboncourt. 9 is our Finance and Corporate Services section. And turn the chair to you, Councillor Darash.
Thank you very much. So we'll start off with our consent agenda. And we have quite a few items. So the recommended action is that the following consent agenda items having been given due consideration be received for information. The first item is the 2022 Building Department Annual Financial Report, Finance Report 2023-19. Second item is the 2022 Debt Continuity Schedule, the Finance Report 2023-20. The third item is a 2022 Development Charges Reserve Fund Continuity Schedule, Finance Report 2023-21. The fourth item is the report from the Principles of Integrity, and that includes the Integrity Commissioner's periodic report. We then have Communications and Social Media Activity Report, Semi-Annual Update, January 2023 to June 2023. And that is a Clerk's Report 2023-07. And finally, we have the Community Wellbeing Committee meeting minutes of April 20th, 2023. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that recommendation, please? Moved by Councillor Marchand, seconded by Councillor Vademokar. Are there any questions or comments or anyone wishing to pull an item? Yes, Councillor Vademokar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a couple of comments. The first comment has to do with the Building Department Annual Financial Report. That's a good news and bad news report in the sense the good news part is that the amount that the department had to go to the reserves was less than what was budgeted, which is good news. The bad news side is that they had to go to the reserves to draw down. And this is the second year that they've had to do that in a row. And there is a concern that if we keep going to that reserve, that at some point we're going to be down to zero or close to it. In discussions at section, it was confirmed that the department is looking at the building department fees as a result of the town of Midland recently completing their building department fee review and proposing a number of increases. So our staff will be looking to bring a report forward in the fall with a review of our fees. So that's a good thing. The last comment I had, it has to do with the two other financial reports and they're timely that they're on this agenda, given that we had our auditors here, and it was nice to see that our debt is going down, a small amount, but it's still going down. And our development charge continuity schedule, even though the development charges have gone down, they've gone to the charges that we've pulled out of the reserves have gone to capital projects. So those are two good news stories. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for that, Councillor Vademokar. Are there any other comments or questions regarding our consent agenda? Seeing none, we'll go to the vote. All in favor? Opposed? The motion carries. Now we will deal with the matters for consideration. The first item is discussion around our community-based strategic plan. So I will put the motion on the floor and then we can talk about all of the wonderful attachments to this item. So the recommended action is that the community-based strategic plan prepared in consultation with McSweeney and Associates Association Incorporated, attached as Appendix 1 to this staff report, be approved, and that following ratification, a brochure or pamphlet outlining the highlights from the project be designed with the intent to disseminate, it's my francophone piece, disseminate to the town's local partners and community groups. And finally, that staff report back to council annually with an update on the project/action status and timelines. Can I get a mover and a seconder for this recommendation? Moved by Mayor Rawson, seconded by Councillor Marchand. The floor is open to discussion. Maybe to start off, seeing that Kelly Cole is not here, who would have written that report, can we maybe ask our CAO to walk us through the four items, the four attachments? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Certainly, what you have in front of you is a staff report that kind of articulates the process in which we have gone through to date with respect to the strategic plan. There are three attachments that are appended to the report. The first one is the actual strategic plan itself, which is 58 pages. It includes all of the actions and the goals as well as the specific actions that McSweeney and Associates has pulled together based on the process to date. The second document that is attached is in fact the community analysis, which is a fairly lengthy document that shouldn't be foreign to most folks. This is information that has been presented through a variety of different forums. And the third document is the implementation plan, which includes the proposed timing with respect to all the various actions within the 6 goals. And we've defined them as short, medium, and long term. Short being 0 to 5 years, medium being 5 to 10, and long term being 10 plus years, recognizing this is a 20-year plan, and that's what we endeavored from the get-go with the intent of this particular project. So, Madam Chair, hopefully that articulates the attachments.
Thank you for those comments. Thank you. Now, do we have any feedback or questions from council? Yes, Councillor Marchand.
Thank you. And I made some comments before just based on the presentation. So in terms of the mission and vision, I know that there were some tweaks and edits to that. So just wanted to get some sense of staff's feedback into that because they're same themes, but they're certainly very different, but very much aligned with what we're looking to do from a strategy perspective. So I just would like to hear a little bit about that. And the other piece too is the reports that are in there, the demographics and those infographics, that's really great data that is now ours that we can use from a town perspective in terms of as we're releasing information and as we're using these things. So the whole package is, I had said before, it's very comprehensive and really fulsome. And this is a really great piece of data for us to continue to use in many facets. So that's really great to see. And then the action plan itself, clean, clear. I love that there's 51 action items so that we know what we're trying to strive towards. And I guess part of it is I always look at what are the outcomes and the measurables. And I think based on this plan, it really is, if we're achieving them, we're checking that box of that action. But I think that's the one piece around coming back annually. And I'm assuming those will all be part of kind of like departmental objectives and individual plans and so on. But all in all, it's really, really great information that we have to work with. And just the question really around about the mission and vision and the staff's input around that specifically.
Sorry, through you, Madam Chair, can I just get some clarity? Is the question what involvement staff had as it relates to that? So the involvement that staff had through that process, it went through the steering committee. The steering committee, which is comprised of a number of staff, and we had 2 members of council that vetted that. It did go back through a senior team with the most of the focus being on the actual actions, the 51 actions, and the respective timing. But that's kind of the process that we undertook.
Thank you for that. Are there any other questions or comments? Yes, Councillor Reda-Boncoeur.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As I indicated earlier, I think what's come out of this process is just fabulous. Councillor Marchand has cited a few examples of what has made this project so valuable for this council, and part of that is the information contained in the strategic plan itself. I wanted to speak a little bit about the next steps, and what I found was that the proposed action that's outlined in our agenda is not really reflective of the contents in the report that outline what the next steps are. And I've circulated a draft motion to Madam Chair, the CAO, and the clerk with some wording with respect to the next steps. And it's basically incorporating what is in the report, if there's a section in the report dealing with next steps. And the clerk has a copy, the Madam Chair has a copy, and so does the CAO. So perhaps at this time, I'll just read it so that people know what I'm talking about. And this is what I'm proposing. That the draft community-based strategic plan prepared in consultation with McSweeney and Associates, Inc., attached as Appendix 1 to the staff report, be approved subject to council and community input. And that the draft plan be circulated to all those that participated in the process to create the plan so they are provided an opportunity to provide feedback. And that the community be made aware of the creation of the draft plan and be asked to provide feedback. And that staff return to committee of the whole or council, depending on the nature of the feedback received, with a final version of the strategic plan for consideration by council. So all I did was I just took the parts of the next steps portion of the report and I put it in a motion because I felt that more accurately reflected what we're doing tonight. And as I said, I conversation with the CAO on this, and I'm just proposing that, and I'd be happy if someone would see fit to second that motion. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Walker. So can we get a seconder for that motion, please? Okay. Okay. Could we treat it as a separate and then basically withdraw the first?
As I'm trying to understand if this is sort of seen as a friendly amendment, just providing clarity, or is Councillor Vadaboncourt saying that this is suggesting an alternative motion?
Madam Clerk, it would be an alternative motion.
Then we do need to handle the original motion.
So can we we have to deal with the original motion first, or do we deal with this alternative motion and then basically withdraw the first?
Well, technically it's a motion to amend. So the motion to amend would take precedence. So we can handle the motion to amend, and then that will either pass or fail. And then we would read the motion as amended.
Okay. So I will need a seconder to receive the amended motion. Yes. Deputy Mayor LaRose. Do we have any discussion on the motion, the amended motion on the floor? Yes, Councillor Marchand.
For clarity, the motion saying that this has to go back out to community for their input on the action plan. That's where I'm just not clear on that, because that I couldn't support given the amount of input that we've gathered in the community that was taken into consideration, which is all part of a strategic plan. But ultimately, you know, those action items and moving things forward is, we may never get consensus from the community that they feel that this is the appropriate action. So I think that's where the piece that I'm just, if we're going back out to our community to get their approval on this plan, I can't support that motion. And I think that's what this is saying. And I just looking for that clarity.
Thank you. If I may,
please
Madam
do so.
Chair, I think it's a good point. However, I'm just trying to reflect what's already the staff are recommending in the report, which talks about just touching base again with this final document with those that provided input, and then giving the community an opportunity for feedback. It's outlined on page it's staff's recommendation. It just wasn't articulated well in the recommendation, and all I did was take that from those first two paragraphs and put it into a motion. So I agree with you. Going back and rehashing is not the intent. It's just now we have a final document, and here you go. And I neglected to mention this, Councillor, but I picked up a couple of things in the final document that I want to send back through just as observations. So there might be a little tweak here and there based on that, but that's the intent, is just tweaking that final document.
Thank you for bringing clarity to that. Are there any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we will vote on the amended motion. And did members want to hear it again? No. Okay. So then all in favor? Opposed? So the amended motion is carried. Now we will go back to the original motion.
So now that is the motion, that is the amendment to the motion that was just passed. So the amendment to the motion now exists,
Okay.
is the current motion that was read by Councillor Vadavon-Cour. So you'll essentially be moving and
That's it.
seconding that again and for a procedure.
Okay. Yeah, we've already got a mover and a seconder on that original motion.
And I don't have record of that, so I must have missed it, but you must have moved it and seconded to get on the floor.
Yes,
So-
it was Mayor
I'd-
Rawson and Councillor Marshall.
Okay, perfect.
So do we have to go to a vote on this?
The motion as amended, yes.
Okay. So the motion as amended, we will vote on that. All those in favor? Opposed, it passes. Thank you. We will now go to our second item. It is regarding proposed amendments to the procedural bylaw 2019-25, Clerk's Report 2023-06. Now, you may recall that this was discussed a few months ago, and the documents you have before you are, there's two documents there. The first is a report from staff talking about the recommended items, that some of the items are some of the wording that needs to be changed, that were more or less housekeeping items, bringing definitions, bringing land acknowledgement to the document and whatnot. Now, the second, it also mentions 7 items that were discussed by council at the time that were voted upon, but that have been changed in this new procedural bylaw. So I don't know if council would prefer to go over those 7 items or if they want to bring the motion forward with those 7 items or as is, because there may be some amendments, a lot, actually quite a few. Yes, Councillor,
Prepared to speak on the matter, Madam Chair?
as a whole.
Well, I'm prepared to speak on the fact that it's a report that's been very extremely well done, put forward, very clear. All the items are very straightforward, and as far as I'm concerned, I would be prepared to approve as presented.
Okay. Okay, so then I will put the motion on the floor, and then we'll have some discussion. That the staff report CL 2023-06 be received for discussion, and that the recommended updates included within this report to procedure bylaw 2019-25 be approved as presented, and that a final draft version of the procedural bylaw be brought forward to the next regular council meeting for consideration. I will need a mover, which will be Councillor Leroux, and I would like a seconder for that motion. Councillor Vadavon-Cour. The floor is open to questions and comments. Yes, Deputy Mayor LaRose.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a problem with number 4. When we look on our sheet of 7, I explained to council last time, we won't go into it a whole bunch, I don't think tonight. I don't believe that us just having 1 meeting per month advances the business of the municipality quite quick enough. I am finding from different people that they're lasting a little bit too long. You figure we're into our 3rd, 4th hour already tonight. And it hasn't been a heavy agenda. So my recommendation would be that we go back to having 2 a month. Whether they go with 2 sections per time, so staff is still only requesting us once a month that way, or whether we go to a different system, but just personally, I don't like the once a month.
So you're putting a motion on the floor then, Councillor, or Deputy Mayor LaRose?
I would make the motion that we go back to having 2 council meetings per month.
And can I get a seconder for that motion? Mayor Rawson, some discussion from other members? Yes, Councillor Marsha.
I've been kind of going back and forth on this one, and I do appreciate the thoroughness of the report. And I don't support that going to 2 meetings a month, and some of the rationale and some of the things that I considered in kind of the direction that I'm not in. I support the recommendation as it's brought forward, not going to 2 a month, is that I think there's a few things that we also need to take into consideration is the fact that if we divide the sections, I don't think that is efficient. And I don't know that we see overlap in a lot of the departmental work and the decisions, and they're decisions that are made consistently and unanimously as our town, as we vote and as we see these reports. And if we have questions, we can, ask any of of our staff or directors who are present to clarify, because there was definitely overlap and things that mesh together. And so, I don't know that it's fair that if you say, oh, you might get asked this question, so as a director, you better come to this section because there's some crossover. So I don't know that that's an efficient use for staff from that perspective by dividing the sections. The other piece that I would also say is some of the things that I took into consideration is that so, tonight's an example. Yes, we're getting close to 10. However, it's been efficient, effective. I don't feel like anything is rushed. This was a big council agenda between council and committee of the whole, and we're all committed and we're prepared when we come to these meetings. And I'm prepared to spend an evening to get through these. And I made a decision to run for council based on the fact that I knew council meetings were once a month, and then we're also asked to be committed, and we are participating in other various committees that draw on us being chairs on at least 2 to 3 other committees that also take up a lot of our time. And we sign up for that, and we're committed to do that. And I am, in terms of the work that I do, and I do work full time as well. So, I'm trying to balance everything. So I think for me, I'm all in when I'm coming to a council and a committee of the whole meeting. Having 2 meetings a month, we talk about not moving things forward. I'm not sure when staff gets a chance to actually carry out the work that we're deciding on from a council perspective. If they're back again in 2 weeks, the reports that we get are so well done. There's a lot of information contained, and those take time, and hitting those deadlines is another piece around that. So I'm concerned that work is not going to get done any quicker if we're meeting twice a month. I don't see that as being as effective. The other piece as well is we've supported our staff to have flexible work arrangements and have balance in their life. And those are really important aspects around retaining and attracting individuals to an organization. And we maintain those schedules and those abilities based on having 1 council meeting per month. And so those are a few things that I really have, looked at from this perspective, being a new member of council as well. But those are my feelings, and I wouldn't support moving to 2 meetings a month.
Thank you for those comments. Yes, Councillor Leroux.
Thank you, Chair. And I actually agree with the comments and comments that Councillor Marshall has made. Respect to it. And the other is that if there's any possibility that comes about, it's the option of special meetings. So I don't support going back to 2 meetings per month.
Thank you for those comments. Do we hear any other comments from anyone else? No? Then seeing none, we will go to the vote. All those in favors of going to 2 meetings a month, please, in favor, opposed. The motion is defeated. So now we can go back to the motion at hand. Are there any comments on any of the other on that motion? Yes, Mayor Rawson.
Thank you. Just one question or question statement regarding number 6 and/or 7. I appreciate the open forum. I appreciate that we put that in lieu of questions from the media and public, and we have that to the end. So I like that. Number 7 was meant to be questions from the media and public about an agenda item. Tonight, we had a discussion regarding the sign, which didn't go through committee of the whole, came to council, and it provided members of the community an opportunity to discuss this. And that's the purpose of that question from media and public at the beginning, It gives members to comment about it. No different than council. We discuss something at committee of the whole, it comes forward to council to ratify. We still debate things on the second time. That gives member of the public to have an opportunity to discuss that item. The report says, well, the public could comment through the Connect Penetanguishene. Not everyone's on the internet. Not everyone's doing that. If someone comes here to participate in the process, I don't think it's right to say, we'll let you talk at the end after we vote. The intent of this was to allow that if someone were to come here, that they could communicate to us before we debate and before we come to a decision. So I'm going to propose out of the 6 and 7 that the open forum, instead of moving it to the end of the agenda, we move that to the beginning. Or number 7, question from medium public, we move that to the beginning to allow members of the public to have an opportunity to speak.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? Yeah, so we can put it on the floor. Yes, Deputy Mayor LaRose. And Stacy, do you have any comments on that?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Certainly, this is something that I saw in writing this report, that allowing for the open forum at the beginning of the meeting would certainly make more sense. It allows for both questions, comments, and that engagement that the mayor is requesting. I think that solves the concerns and allows for members of the public to be heard and not have to stay to the very end of the meeting. And that's something I'd be comfortable with.
Yes, Councillor Marcia.
Ian, I think the piece that apparently I can't speak, my apologies. Under number 6, there was, if we move to this, some conditions, some framework so that we ensure that, just like a public deputation, you have 10 minutes and that we're keeping it so that it doesn't become this large open forum. So as long as those pieces are being followed and that it has to be an item that is on the agenda, I think that is kind of the key piece there. As long as the motion, that's what we're proposing, that those conditions make up the framework of what that open forum looks like. That would help me. And I just want to clarify that.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The request to include an open forum actually did not encompass items on the agenda. I know it's truly an open forum where they do have to register. So there is going to be sort of a sign. I haven't worked out all the details because, as far as I know, I don't know if this is going to happen, but there would be sort of a sign-up sheet where people would have to identify what it is that they're speaking about. They would be briefed on ensuring that none of those items that they spoke about were within those prohibited areas, but they would be allowed to sort of make a statement in less than 2 minutes with a maximum of 10 minutes. So if we had 12 people here, everybody would get less than 2 minutes. It's a 10-minute maximum moment. They'd be able to make a comment, concern, and it wouldn't have to be something on the agenda.
And Mayor Rawson, your understanding with your motion is that it would include the parameters of the items listed in 6.
Correct. And I believe when the clerk spoke, I think she said she was comfortable with this. I won't put words in her mouth, but I believe she said she was comfortable with that. But yes.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to be sure. Yes, Councillor Vadamokar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to clarify then, your worship, are you proposing to introduce this open forum at the beginning of the meeting? And there at the end of the meeting, there still would be this question period from the media and the public?
I want to make it the easiest path. I was looking to the clerk to see what she would recommend. What I was suggesting was if we move the open to the beginning, we would need the questions at the end. I think it solves both. But I looked to the clerk to see what she felt was better. At the end of the day, I want public to have an opportunity to speak. And if we had that at the beginning, I don't think we need that at the end. And I think that's what the clerk was suggesting was she was comfortable with.
Are we clear then? Yeah. Okay. So let's go to the vote then. All in favor? Opposed? It passes. Are there any other comments on the procedural bylaw recommendations and the items at hand? Yes, Mayor Rawson.
Thank you. Question regarding the tiny township appointment process regarding the library. I just want clarification. When will this come in force? So assuming this bylaw is ratified September council meeting, will this mean that the appointment process takes effect in October, for example? Can we just get clarity on that? Or do we need to add clarity?
Yes, Stacy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Happy to provide that clarity. Currently, the Tiny Township representative has been appointed by the town of Penetanguishene. So that process has taken place. That member is there. This procedural bylaw would only come into an effect if under those circumstances that we were to lose that member of the Tiny Township appointment, we would then need to rely on this new procedural bylaw to refill that spot.
So effectively, it would only take effect in the next term.
In the next term, or if we had
Yes.
a new vacancy, yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, so I believe the motion was amended. And you have all the amendments? Then we will go to vote for the amended motion with the changes listed. All those in favor? Opposed? The motion carries. To our next topic. So the next item for discussion is the Advisory Committee Work Plans 2023. So before you do have a clerk's report 2023-08. The recommended action is that the 2023 work plans for the Community Wellbeing Committee, the Museum and Heritage Committee, the Economic Advisory Committee, and the Trails Committee be approved as presented. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that motion? Moved by Councillor Vademokar, seconded by Mayor Rawson. Do we have any questions or comments on these work plans? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. The next agenda item is the non-cash transactions report. It is the finance report 2023-23. The recommended action is that the 2022 non-cash transactions as reported in the 2022 annual audited financial statements and 2023 estimated non-cash transactions be adopted by resolution without amending the budgets. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that motion? Moved by Councillor Leroux, seconded by Deputy Mayor LaRose. Any questions or comments on this item? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. Fifth item is the 2022 draft reserves and reserve funds continuity schedule, finance report 2023-22. It is recommended that the 2022 reserves and reserve funds continuity schedule be approved as presented. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Deputy Mayor LaRose, seconded by Councillor Vademokar. Do we have any comments or questions on this item? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. The sixth item is the 2022 draft surplus analysis. It's Finance Report 2023-24. It is recommended that the 2022 taxation operating surplus transfer to the transit reserve in the amount of $93,370 be approved. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Leroux, seconded by Councillor Marchand. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. The referral items are the paper ballot consideration in 2026 municipal election, staff position of grants writer, and we do have the Tiny Township funding agreement for the Penetanguishene Arena. And the recommended motion is that the Finance and Corporate Services section endorse the following additional and existing referrals to upcoming agendas and staff. Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Marchand, seconded by Deputy Mayor LaRose. Any comments, additions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. We have no media or public for questions. So I'll pass it back to you, Mayor Rossin.
Thank you, Councillor DeRush. Thank you, everyone. That concludes our committee of the whole for tonight. Jeff, a comment for you overall. I've sent a lot of emails your way. A lot of people have been inquiring all kinds of stuff of me about municipal operations. I just want to say thanks to you and your team for everything from picnic table fixes to statues to the name it. So thank you to everyone for your feedback and work on that. I appreciate that on behalf of the community. Thank you.